Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the NXTGEN Racing GT3 Championship Season 2. And it is round 2 of the 12 round calendar. Today is the Wednesday, the 24th of November 2021, and we've got plenty of racing action ahead in tonight's Apex Racing Academy lobby. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we'll be bringing you all of the live racing action from lobby number 1 of our 2 lobbies, and we have upwards of 50 drivers here looking to go racing around the American circuit of Sebring very shortly. But in the build up to tonight, let's first take a moment to step back and take you through the schedule. Times in Greenwich Mean Time, or GMT and UTC, will be getting underway in approximately 14.5 minutes with our qualifying session. That'll be a 15-minute session that will determine the grid order for the sprint race, and then at 8:15 this evening we'll be getting underway with the 15-minute sprint race, where it'll be all action in charging around the circuit in order to try and get the best possible result. No strategy expected, it's all about having that outright pace and being able to get through the field as quickly as possible. After that, we'll take a brief breather, but whilst we're having that breather, of course, we'll be bringing you our post-race interviews with the winners in each of the 3 classes, the Pro class, the Pro-Am class, and also the M class, and then we'll have a break, and we'll return at approximately 5 to 9 tonight in the build-up to the 60-minute feature race, the strategic race with the all-important mandatory pit stop, which could throw a few spanners in the works for some drivers and lead to some tactical fortunes or tactical misfortune, depending on how things play out. Tonight's broadcast is being brought to you on 3 media platforms. As always, you've got the NXTGEN Racing YouTube channel first and foremost. Then you've got the NXTGEN Racing Facebook group. That is facebook.com/groups, and you can find NXTGEN Racing there. Or last but not least, if you're more inclined to use Twitch, you can always tune in via Twitch, and my personal Twitch, that's TX141. Now, who am I? I'm your commentator, and my name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141, or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and it's great to be back in the build-up to the racing tonight. Now, before we go any further, let's just briefly introduce our primary sponsor for this lobby, and that is ARA, or in full, Apex Racing Academy. Who are they and what are they about? So, who are Apex Racing Academy? Well, they're not just a setup shop. They are dedicated to making you better at iRacing with services, access to drivers, and features not found on other driving schools and academies. Working with them will see you connecting with pros like never before. You can learn how to prepare for a race, build setups, improve lap times, and understand how to use telemetry tools such as VRS. Every week they host multiple sessions where members can join the coaches and take advantage of group coaching sessions, and in partnership with SDK Gaming, all the data provided will be automatically synchronized directly to your PC. There's no need to go hunting for setup, replay or ghost files, the data is right there when you turn the simulator on. Interested? Why not sign up today at apexracingac.com. That website again, apexracingac.com. And of course, we're very grateful to have Apex Racing Academy on board with us, supporting this series and helping provide a large portion of the prize pool for Lobby 1. But coming from our primary sponsor to the standings, our contenders in Lobby 1. We can take you through firstly the Drivers' Championship as it currently stands across the 3 different classes. Beginning with the pros, of course, our 20 fastest drivers, if you will, within that top tier of the Lobby 1. And we can see that after round 1, Matt Caruana currently leading on 42 points, having laid down an early marker with the pole position in the opening race at Daytona in the United States last time out, and on top of that picking up a good haul of points in both the sprint race and also the feature race, the win in the feature race of course, but the sprint race eluding Matt Caruana in terms of picking up the win, but there was quite a bit of drama in that opening race. We can see there, however, he does have some pursuers, including Tom Edmonds and Elliot Harper, both on 33 points and looking to lay claim to chasing after Caruana, but do not count out Reese Carroll in P4 on 30 points, who had that win, of course, in the opening sprint race, but had difficulty in the feature race due to the incidents that occurred on the opening laps. Then we've got Håkon Gripstad in P5 in the McLaren with the fastest lap in the sprint race, giving him some extra points, an extra 2 points there, and currently on 27 points and continuing his momentum after what was a brilliant pre-season. Outside of the top 5, Landry, Dadswell, Heremans, Anders Veers, Ankerson and Billy Fletcher completing your top 10 there, with Fletcher having a difficult day at the office and down in P10 as a result. And as we look outside of the top 10, you can see that our highest contender in the build-up to trying to get back into the top 10 after one round is Oystein Hereford down 23 points. A brilliant sprint race, but a very difficult feature race, meaning that he lost out on some very useful points. A bit further down, we can see Mark Fletcher there in P14, having a good result in the sprint race, but a mild result in the feature race on 15 points. Tom Mail in a similar situation, albeit a bit more consistent across the two races, also on 15 points there in P15. And then looking down to the bottom, Callum Brandt and Christoph Kerekes line up P19 and P20 in the driver's standings after the opening round with 8 and 7 points respectively. Meanwhile, as we look to the Pro-Am class standings, the story there is quite much the same, with one driver proving to make a small lead already by 6 points, and that is Callum Reed-Garton in the Pro-Ams. However, he's got Paul King and Edward Lack chasing after him on 38 and 37 points respectively. Both drivers having a good time at Daytona, much like Callum Reed-Garton, with King picking up the fastest lap in the sprint race and 2 good results, and Edward Lack the same, particularly picking up the fastest lap in the feature race. And you have to imagine that those two will look to try and minimise the advantage that Garton has come the end of round 2. Jakob Boschoff and Anthony Beck there, both on 32 points, completing our top 5, and then our top 10 being rounded off by Bounce, Romano, Holmer, Deschamps and Verlamink, and particularly looking at Jean-Louis Deschamps in P9, having had a very good sprint race, a difficult feature race, but he battled back to pick up 5 points, giving himself 22 points to his name. Outside of the top 10 in the Pro-Ams, we can see here the remainder of our drivers. Jeremy DeBova having a rather mixed time at Daytona with pole position in the Pro-Am class, but an incident coming out of turn number 5 on the opening lap saw him go into a major collision with a number of drivers, and DeBova ending up losing out some considerable points where he was expected to be the winner of that sprint race given the margin he had qualified by on pole. However, he's been able to turn it around somewhat. He recovered well in the sprint race, and in the feature race also made a recovery to pick 7 points on the table, giving him 20 points overall. Colin Martin there in P13, a DNF in the feature race due to technical issues with the car, but in the sprint race picking up 16 points, and that's put him in good stead. And looking further down towards the bottom of the top 20 of our Pro-Ams there, we can see Matthew Hodges, Phil McDougall and Peter Lemkins all getting reasonable points on the board, and while Peter Lemkins having those technical issues in the feature race, but still 5 points accrued from the sprint race, and that's given him a good foundation. We last but not least come on to our AM class standings, and the story here in the AM class is it is very tight between our top 3 at the moment, with George Bland after the opening round picking up the majority of the points and having 41 points to his name, but Navarro DeBova going out of the gates flying at Daytona with pole position and also the fastest lap in the sprint race plus the win as well, giving him the maximum points haul for the sprint race, but he had a difficult time in the feature race, still getting 10 points however, has given him a very good start and made him an outside contender, a very prominent contender already. Matt Emmons there in P3 meanwhile with 36 points, getting 2 strong results and a fastest lap in the feature race, but perhaps thinking there was a little bit more on the table in the sprint race in particular, and whether he could have perhaps got himself further up the field in the feature. Our top 5 there being completed by Oosterhuis and Gamborg Rasmussen, and outside the top 5 we can see Stefan Tim Koopmans in P6 at this point in time. Koopmans having a difficult sprint race but a rather strong feature race, picking up 21 points, albeit not able to make the win in the end George Bland coming on through, but Koopmans playing it smart and picking up some very good points to make sure his campaign is well underway. Alexander Batak, Arjan Kregel and Gus Franken all on 28 points apiece there, all having good races, consistent performances across the 2 races at Daytona, and Kurt Van Hoornacker completing our top 10 on 25 points. Outside of the top 10 then, in the amateur class, what you can see here is it's still a very close, albeit 2 drivers were unable to start due to being unavailable or not being able to get the car out of the garage, and we can see Jürgen Nocker and Peter Dombrett being the ones who sustained those issues. But meanwhile, looking a bit further up, you can see it being our major contender to get back into the top 10 tonight, with 21 points to his name, having a difficult feature race but a good sprint race, and he'll be looking to try and make a better run of the feature race at Sebring. And meanwhile, Peter Cooper is in P13, having a consistent pair of results, not to be difficult, but while those ones whereby he just did not get the highest possible results in order to get himself into that top 10, but we'll be keeping our eyes on him. And Matthew Addy and Arjan Bakker both competing in the sprint race, but having technical issues in the feature race mean they lost out some rather crucial points. But those are our Drivers' Championship standings, and as we look to the team standings, now you're probably wondering at this point, how does the Team Championship work? The Team Championship applies across both lobbies, so we have got drivers from teams in both lobbies, the Apex Racing Academy lobby, which you're seeing tonight, and you'll be seeing the Coach Dave Academy Next Level Racing lobby 2 tomorrow, and these points are across the teams in both lobbies, if you will. So as a result, you'll see these proceedings tomorrow as well, and we'll be talking a bit more about those, but these will not be updated until the end of round 2, so the completion of round 2, that's when we'll give you the update. So what we can see right now is Apex Racing Academy with M&V Esports there getting off to a great start on 83 points, and meanwhile Ignium Spark given pursuit on 78 points, but they've got Challenge BE2 on 77 points, and RD Simsport on 76, and Luxim 24 with M&V Esports on 75. So our top 5 all in very close contention. You've then got a very close battle building for P6 already with RD Simsport, NXTGEN Orange, NXTGEN Blue, and SBMS, that's Switchback Motorsport, all being separated by only 6 points in the run from P6 to P9, and then Team RTA and P10 on 57 points. But as we look down outside the top 10, you can see Delta Motorsport and Altitude Esports will both have something to say about that top 10 position later on in tonight's proceedings. Meanwhile, 6 Archer Project Black having a difficult start to the proceedings, but through Ed Lack's efforts alongside his teammates, being able to recover from what were difficult races to get some great points on the board. And Ignium Motorsport as well, having a difficult day at Daytona, much like Team Tetrarouge, but those teams will be looking to bounce back tonight. Outside of our top 15, but Challenge B1 in P16 right now, the team that was on course to have some fantastic points hauls, but it wasn't to be at Daytona, with the drivers having difficulty none less than Jeremy DeBova in particular having that disastrous start to the sprint race, and TRN Blue and TRN Orange both getting some good points on the board there, 34 and 33 apiece, but the Team Racing Netherlands teams will be expecting to get even more points today. And Ignium Blaze and DDR being made up of course of the single driver as we come to understand it of Reese Carroll, DDR being down in P20. It's a one-man army there in the form of Reese Carroll, and can he start to move his team up the board tonight? It's going to be a tricky one, but if anybody can do it, he can. Now, as for our circuit, we are here, of course, at Sebring, Florida, USA, at the Sebring International Raceway, a very different circuit as shown by the circuit diagram provided to us by simracingwiki.com. A circuit which is not about the slipstream, it's not about the oval, it's about mastering the art of multiple different types of corners, whether it's trail braking corners, of which there are a good number, whether it be trail braking into, say, turn 1, the opening corner, or the run through in towards the heavy braking zone of turn 7 at the hairpin. You've then got the switchback combination of corners running from turn 8 all the way round to Tower Corner at turn 13, and then you've got the more extended portion of the circuit coming out to turn 13, culminating in Sunset Bend at turn 17. A very long and late apex into a wide hairpin, but that's preceded by, of course, the Allman Straight. And this circuit involves 2 road surface changes because this circuit is based on an old airfield in the United States, and it is the oldest serving road-based motor circuit in the United States as well. And it's going to be a reference to that right now from Reese Carroll, who takes us around. So making his way into the final corner, you can already see the switch to concrete off of the standard tarmac as he makes his way through the final corner through Sunset Bend and now charges down towards the start-finish line to go on to our reference lap for today. And as he makes his way across the timeline here, building up towards the top gear, he's in 5th gear right now, the Lamborghini Huracan. In fact, staying in 5th gear, going into the braking zone, trail braking into left hand of turn 1, a very late apex there, and you want to be very close to one. See how the road surface narrows there, and indeed as we switch to the tarmac, he now makes his way through 2 and up into turn 3, coming down to 2nd gear here and trying to swing the car in before switching to the right hander of 4 and then into 5, getting it nice and late on the apex once again here so we can go on full attack, full throttle here through 6, known as the Big Bend, the long right hander where it's completely foot to the floor and just go all the way through the right hander in the long run up towards the hairpin at turn 7, looking for that braking marker, coming up towards the turn 7 hairpin, heavy on the brakes here and coming all the way down to 1st gear, while the sliced, if not the sliced corner on the circuit as he now makes his way through turns 8 and 9, the left into right sequence, and now carries on through into 10. Now making his way up towards the sequence of corners, which is turns 11 through to 13, culminating Tower Corner, of course, at this point going up to high speed once again, a long run but a narrow circuit, and as he makes his way through the right hander here of where it's turn 11 and then switches to the left hander at 12, close to the apex there, a tight line so that way he can get the best possible exit going in towards turn 13, in towards Tower Corner, as he now makes his way into the braking zone. Coming out to 13, building up once again here, and now moving on to the more open part of the circuit in terms of not having to be as heavy on the brakes per se, and you'll see the road surface starts to widen and there's overtaking opportunities will start to build here as he makes his way through 14 and down into 15. Now returning to the concrete road surface as well, going back onto the old airfield, if you will, as he makes his way into turn 16 here, before the very long run down the Ormond Straight towards 17. And this is the longest stretch of road in terms of the straights of all of them, the long straight, which gives plenty of overtaking opportunities, and it does feel as though it goes on forever. But you have to be wary, of course, because now we've got the braking zone for the final corner, the long trail braking zone, where he comes all the way down from 6th gear to 3rd gear, trail braking all the way in and keeping it close to the wall, and as he emerges, getting back on the throttle nice and early before charging out to complete the lap, and a lovely lap there by Carroll. Now, as for the race rules, tonight our drivers will be running the iRace high downforce setup. It's fixed setups, of course, and we'll be running the high downforce setups for both of the races. In the sprint race, each driver will have one fast repair available, and if they receive more than 17 or more instant points, they'll receive a drive-through penalty for their naughty behaviour. In the feature race, we'll be seeing our drivers starting fuel loads restricted to 70% as always, and this is to make sure they have to take a pit stop in which they take on fuel. But as for regards to, well, changing tyres, it's entirely up to them. And meanwhile, with regards to fast repairs, our drivers will have one fast repair available once again. And if they do accumulate 25 or more instant points, our drivers will be receiving a drive-through penalty for their behaviour. But now, looking away from the rules, we get ready to go racing with the qualifying session. So as we clear the data out of the way, out of your screen right now, it is the case that we are only moments away from qualifying. 15 seconds away from qualifying as it currently stands. And we are going to be back very briefly, ladies and gentlemen, to take things away. Now, as we can see with the conclusion of this final practice session, it's Matt Caruana who has taken the fastest lap in the practice at the moment with what was a 1:59.5 and only really putting in a couple of laps there as we do get the transition over now to qualifying, and it looks as though it is going to be a case of everyone will be trying to compete to get as low as possible in the 2 minutes as now qualifying is underway. We are go for 15 minutes. And my apologies there, just a slight glitch on our data screen. But now as we clear that out the way, it is the case all of our drivers immediately piling out the pit lane here as rapidly as possible as they come charging on down towards turn number 1. And as our drivers make their way down at this point, you have to imagine they will all be trying to come through as quickly as possible here. As I do appreciate some of our drivers' paints are not properly shown on the cars, and those will be updated over the course of the qualifying session. And we can see everybody coming on through as quickly as possible here as they make their way down into the corner. Now, the secret to qualifying at Sebring here, you do not want to be in the toe of another driver in front of you. Quite the opposite. Instead, what you want to be focusing on is giving yourself as much clear space as possible as they come on down through the corners here. And looking a bit further back right now in the traffic jam, if you will, of all the cars here, as we can see Reese Cowell, the driver who we rode on board with for the reference lap, the Lamborghini Huracan driver here from DDR, making his way all the way down towards what is the hairpin, coming through the big bend right now through turn 6 and down towards 7. And of course, he'll be looking to do everything he can tonight to have the best possible qualifying result. Qualifying is going to be critical here. It is going to be a major factor in terms of that sprint race in particular, because of the fact that the circuit starts off so wide into turn 1. We're expecting major overtaking attempts into turn 1 as somebody then in the BMW gets it very wrong, coming up through the corners there through 8 and 9 and coming through into 10. But as we look further around right now, it's Billy Fletcher, although you wouldn't imagine it right now because the Luxem livery hasn't quite loaded his car yet. It will be there come the end of this qualifying session, I can assure you right now, as we are just clearing up some technical items. But it's the case that Fletcher will be doing everything he can in the Audi R8 today in order to try and get a strong result after what was a difficult season opener. And as we turn to the chat right now, we can see and say hello to what is the Dr. Simpson, and we hope you're doing well. And that's also Sim Riggs at UK. Well, it's good to see you, Dr. Simpson, there in YouTube. We've got Ed Knight as well cheering on Ignium Motorsport as always, and let's try and find some of the Ignium Motorsport drivers. Well, we've got Jaco Boschov here making his way on down, and it is the case, as I say. And just to repeat, all our liveries will start loading in very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. We have had some slight issues with liveries that we are fixing as things currently go on, with Trading Paints being our livery service, and you can see some drivers' liveries are already appearing, but by the end of qualifying they will all be there. But of course we do have a little cheat sheet to try and fix these technical issues as everyone's now building up for their opening qualifying lap. And it is the case that Paul King already going on to a lap here as we ride on board with the Lamborghini, the Audi driver I should say. Lamborghini of course with the same engine, but it's not to be as King makes his way for the signal scores through 3 and up into turn number 4 right now, and he's got a little bit of track ahead of him. I believe that is Billy Fletcher ahead of him as he makes his way through 5 and into 6 here, and King's going to be keeping it as smooth as possible. He'll also be benefiting from the draft right now off the back of Fletcher as he makes his way down towards turn number 7 as he comes into the heavy braking zone for the hairpin at this point. King just keeping it nice and smooth, remembering of course that King Meanwhile, our drivers in what is the Pro-Am class here, he'll be chasing after the Pro driver of Fletcher and using him as a little bit of a reference lap as well as a bit of a tow here as he comes up towards the next sequence of corners, starting off with turn 10, of course, into the right-hander he comes, and as he flows on through now into 11 and flying through the left-handers here and getting ready to head up towards town corner of 13 as he makes his way on in through 12 and now into 13 and into that right-hander, which really ends the mid portion of the circuit. And now we start to make our way back towards the airfield and back towards the concrete road surface as King looking very smooth as it currently stands in this portion of the qualifying session, and as he makes his way around coming up towards what is the long right-hander before he starts to make his way around onto the airfield, where it's the case he's got 15 to go through his first, and then Le Mans corner. This is the long right-hander of Le Mans at 16, and as he emerges now you can see the car which was in front of him has moved out the way as we are getting some lap times coming in, but they are all warm-up laps, they are not proper laps. And now as we can see King charging down towards what is turn 17, into the long corner he goes and getting ready to trail break his way and staying in 5th gear rather than going up into 6th, and very smooth on entry there, not quite able to get as close as he would like, so a bit of hesitancy on getting on the throttle. You could see that just in the nature of the way he was balancing the car, but as he emerges, Hakon Gustav goes fastest, worth 59.6, the first lap time to come on in. King was setting a 2-minute 0.5 there, a good lap by King, but it looks though DD Vlaming already countering, and indeed all the times are starting to now come in, and it would seem that right now Hakon Gustav in the McLaren here doing a fantastic job with that opening qualifying lap as he makes his way around again for his second flying lap right now. And the MP412C, whilst it's a car which many have said is not the fastest in the GT3 class with the current balance of performance, you have to imagine in Gustav's hands he's making it look incredibly fast indeed as he makes his way into the hairpin once more. More times coming in, and what about with our AM drivers? We can see it's Stefan Tim Koopmans at the moment in the Lamborghini Huracan who has set the fastest lap on what is a 2-minute 1.31 as he comes down towards turn number 7 once again here, and we are still waiting for a number of liveries to load in as Koopmans makes his way through, and we've got a car spun on the hairpin there. Now who is that? I believe that's 2 cars involved in one instant, and as we see here Koopmans backing off due to the fact he had to lift out in the run down towards the corner, and he jumps to the pit as meanwhile further back here we can see Ennio Bava's got quite a bit of traffic in front of him as he makes his way on round through the sequence of course through the mid portion of the section right now, and you can see he's having to navigate this traffic, and that's the challenge of course around here on the circuit in terms of when you get that traffic, particularly through the middle section. It's one of those difficult things that you have to navigate, and it's your lap pretty much compromised when the case you have to be patient and find that space on the circuit. You can see on the circuit map right now it's the case that our number 2 driver Hakon Gustav, well, we're looking at him right now, he's got himself so much space out on the circuit, and this is what you need at Sebring. You need the space to give yourself the perfect lap, or you want to catch up to a driver down here in the latter half of a lap where it's the long straight down towards turn 17. We see Gustav there taking out a number of cones and paying visits to the cones, getting it a bit wrong under braking into turn 17 and makes his way into the pits instead, as Oystein Hereford making his way around as well, the Ignium Motorsport driver here in the Audi R8, and Oystein being a very fast driver, a very sensible driver as we do know, currently P5 overall and P5 in class in the Pro class. But meanwhile looking to our Pro-Ams, we can see it's the BMW M4 of Callum Reed Garton that's once again setting those timing screens alight, currently the best part of what is, as I look at my timing deltas here, 2/10 faster than DD Vlaming, and well you can see DD Vlaming in P12 overall, that's P2 in Pro-Am. It's a very small delta between the two of what is effectively 2/10, but you can imagine those 2/10 are going to be critical for Garton, and he will be grateful for the fact he has got that advantage as it currently stands, I should say. But meanwhile in the in the AM class, I can tell you that Jochen Siegert right now, as his livery still is loading in, it's the case that Jochen Siegert has got the fastest lap in the AMs by the best part of what is only a 10th, if that, over P2 man Stephen Koopmans, who's currently parked in the pits and waiting to go once again. But meanwhile looking a bit further down the order, some drivers who are struggling right now, Tom Edmonds in particular here, as he's making his way down towards the final corner once again in the Lamborghini Huracan, the Pro driver right now P47. And it's not looking good for the RD SimSport driver at this point, but you can imagine he's going to try and put something together later on. Well, he's making his way around right now. Is this going to be enough an improvement? Well, he's up on all of his previous best, so I think it's going to be the case that Edmonds will find a way of improving at the halfway point of this session. And how far does it take him? It takes him up to P10. Very nice work there from Edmonds to get himself all the way up into the top 10 on a 2-minute 0.059. Indeed, we haven't had too many drivers break into the 59s. Well, in fact, I say that it is the case that our top 9 are all in the 59s, and it's Matt Caruana who has responded to the early pace of Grosjean and Harper as well, and it's now Matt Caruana who set the fastest lap of everybody at 59.471. He's currently on an outlap here. He's put on a fresh set of rubber and is looking to go again with 7 minutes this session to go, plus the overtime of course for completing his final lap. And Caruana really laying down a marker, and much like at Daytona, it is the case that Caruana coming out of the gates flying. Will he be able to secure pole? Well, based on this trajectory, he is almost a tenth ahead of Elliot Harper. Of course, oh goodness me, and behind we've got multiple cars spinning there going into turn number 1. A number I think losing it just under their own pressure, but it is the case that Harper having a major moment as well, as we can see. Meanwhile, Matthew Hodges making his way around the CXR project, a black driver in the Ferrari. He's currently P3 in Pro and P15 overall, giving way to traffic coming on through. So Hodges on an outlap right now, as we're hearing on our Delta, and as a result, it's one of those situations for Hodges where he's got to get himself into a nice bit of flying traffic. And looking at our circuit map right now, you can see that Hodges is actually in a really good space. He does have Tom Edmonds ahead of him. Edmonds is on average a bit faster over the course of a lap by somewhere in the region of about 3 to 4 attempts, and that would mean for Hodges, if he stays here right now, nobody comes out the pits in front of him when he comes around to go on to his next flying lap. This could really work out for Hodges because he's got a car in front which will give him a distant tow, but it's not going to be enough to compromise this lap, and that car will naturally get away. So it's not perfect. He won't close up to the car in the run down through Le Mans corner onto the Allman Straight, but Hodges will do very well to stay in this clear air right now as he makes his way on around. As we see that Reece Cowell improves to P2 overall, 59.488. And it's the case for Reece Cowell right now where he has improved. He's got himself very close to Caruana. He is only 200ths off of that pole lap by Caruana as it currently stands, as our drivers make their way around through the corners. And we can see further down, it's the case where it's a Lamborghini P1 to P4 right now, and then Håkon Gustad, who's at the back of this pack that we're taking a look at. Håkon Gustad putting in a strong lap. But it's the case the McLaren driver is the first bit of car variety in terms of manufacturer, as we see then Billy Fletcher in P6 at this point in time. And I believe it's the case that Fletcher's still loading in terms of the livery on the car. We should be expecting that to appear very soon. We are just waiting. There's only a couple left now in terms of liveries to appear, and we do apologise for that. It's right now the case that Fletcher doing everything he can to try and find some more time, because he is 2 tenths off of Grosjean, and it really does look as though our top 5 are in a world of their own, separated by only 1.5 tenths, and then Fletcher's a further 2 tenths away. But to be fair to Fletcher, this alone, this P6 would be strong, but we'll have to wait and see how it plays out for Fletcher as he makes his way around through the final sets of corners right now and heads down onto the Allman Straight. But meanwhile, in the battle for the Pro-Am pole position, we can see that it's Garton still holding on, but Ed Lack has dethroned his rivals for that P2 position, as we see the CXR Project Black driver here in the Lamborghini Huracan making his way through the sequence of corners of 14, 15 and into 16 he flows, and as he exits the corner here, it is the case now making his way down Allman. You can see the Ferrari behind there trying to hug on to get a bit of slipstream, and that's George Bland a bit further back. And if you're wondering where's George Bland in all of this qualifying, well, he's currently P10 in class and P48 overall, and Bland really having a difficult day at the office as he actually drops down to P11 in class. The Porsche driver here from MV Esports not having a good day at Sebring as he gets it very wrong, gets clipped on the inside wall there as he made his way through. The rear right tyre just being clipped, and that is going to be Bland back to the pits. He hasn't got long to get a better lap in, and I wonder how long it will be before he's coming back out the pits again when they've got to do some repair work to that car. But meanwhile, Jochen Seeger in a world of his own, you have to say, with regards to that BMW and getting it around on circuit as rapidly as possible right now. Jochen Seeger in what is P1 in class and P29 overall, and the gap between him and Stefan Tim Koopmans now is, as we take a look at our timing screen here, it is the best part of 4 tenths a second. So Jochen Seeger well on his way to taking pole position in the AM class as Matt Caruana improves to a 59.3 and immediately parks up and says, right, we've done it, let's go back to the pits. And I think for Caruana at this point, as he makes his way out once again, he's going to go for one more fast lap. I think Caruana will be feeling very confident with regards to the qualifying laps he has put in and looking very strong as he makes his way around on circuit, and more of our drivers continue to do so as well. But meanwhile, as we look from what is our screen to the chat here, we can see Alexander Wilken Ludimo saying doing great, go Hereford, and indeed somebody cheering on Oystein Hereford, and he is a bit of a fan favourite, Oystein Hereford, who we're just trying to find out on circuit, and he is at the moment down in P10 still, the Ignium Motorsport driver making his way way through the corners here, coming up through what is the left-hander there of, as we check on our circuit map, that looks to be coming up into turn number 9. Indeed, he made his way through turn 10, I should say, actually, and now coming into 11, 12 and 13, and it looks like the Audi driver here hasn't got quite the pace to be right up there in the Pro class, but still trying to chase after that top 10, as we see Jason Landry, the Canadian here in the Ferrari, improving considerably to a P8 and a 59.888, and indeed, we are seeing more 59s from our Pro drivers right now, as he makes his way through turn number 3. And I think he's got one of the Delta Motorsport machines. Well, actually, that's an Altitude Motorsport machine just ahead of him right now as he makes his way through the corners here. And that's going to be a bit of difficulty, as that is the number 70 car in front. And as a result, it could be a little bit of an obstruction as he makes his way around. Of course, that driver will be on a lap of his own. And I can tell you right now, in terms of drive, well, that's the number 10 car, not the number 70 car. My eyesight's getting terrible these days. That's Tom Dadswell ahead of him. And Dadswell right now in P13. So really, it's the case that right now in P14, P13 in class, as our time screen's updated. And the problem with Dadswell right now is he's very out of position compared to his peers. He's actually been outperformed by Garton in the Pro-Am, but of course some circuits favour some drives and some circuits don't favour them, and I think it might be the case for Dadswell. He's just not having a good time at Sebring in qualifying, as we are seeing our timings now come down. Here's the case, we've got 1.5 minutes to go before the stopwatch closes, and then we just wait for the overtime for those final laps which our drivers are on. But in terms of shock surprises, I can tell you that Daniel Blomqvist right now is all the way down in P39. The Pro driver here, 19th in class, the lowest of our drivers in the class at this point in time. And this is not good news for the Swede as he makes his way up towards turn 7 here. He is a long way down. He has not got long to get a lap on the board. And right now, as he's making his way on through, as he currently comes through turns 8 and 9, I imagine he may not have time to get onto one more lap after this. So this lap will be do or die for him. And can he get a good lap in the final hours? Because if not, right now he's going to be starting so far away from his peers, it will potentially set him up well for the feature race, but it does mean he loses out on some major points in the sprint. As he makes his way through the corners here, we are just going to save Blomqvist to see if he does improve as he makes his way through 13 through Tower Corner here, and as he comes through the right-hander. In terms of his previous laps, well, his best lap has been a 2:01.41, which by normal standards would be absolutely fantastic, but given the class he's in, the lap is well in a world away from where it needs to be as he makes his way now through turns 15 and into 16 very shortly. Here he comes, and as he makes his way through onto the Ullman straight now through Le Mans corner, it's the case that the timer is down. The checker flag is out for this qualifying session, and can Blomqvist find a way to improve as Billy Fletcher improves to P3 provisional at 59.528 for the champion from previous season in the Pro class. But as we see Blomqvist coming on down right now into the final corner, he goes very close to that inside wall there, and you can see the car just twitching through the corner, not wanting to go round as much as he'd like, getting a bit of an understeer there, but he keeps within the track limits, and as he crosses the line, what does he improve to? If he does improve, he crosses the line, and it's an improvement, but not by much. It's P31 for Blomqvist, and he will be our lowest starting Pro driver by a considerable margin. Even if nobody else was to improve right now, the next up is Anders Ankersen, who is not going to improve on this lap because he's taken to the rallycross line there on the exit of one of our corners, and I believe that's on the exit of 13, but the Porsche driver from Denmark having a difficult time in the qualifying session as all the lap times are now coming to their conclusion. Everyone's starting to peel back into the pit and wrap on up, but it is the situation that right now we can see Jason Landry here on a lap. What about Matt Caruana? Well, Caruana has crossed that timeline. He improves to a 59.2. Caruana just entering this into a world of his own and disappearing with that pole position. Now, can Reese Carroll come back at him here? He's 2.5 tenths down right now. If the DDR driver's got anything in reserve as he makes his way through the right-hander here, you would have to say that if he is able to find a way to sneak pole position off of Caruana, this will be a magical lap. It will be a lap of the gods. And as he comes across the line, he's parking up already. He knows he's not matching that, and indeed he's backed off. So it is the case right now that it's Matt Caruana who has taken pole in the Pro class. Callum Regarton has taken pole in the Pro-Am class, and it's Jochen Seeger in the end who has taken pole position in the Am class, although we weren't able to see him cross the line as we see Peter Lemkins here making his way around. But it is the case that Jochen Seeger has taken pole position in the Am class as we're just waiting for our final laps to come on in. We see Peter Lemkins out on circuit right now, but he will be jumped to the garage shortly because he has already completed his qualifying session, and I think everybody is done. But really, the surprise story of it all is Daniel Blomqvist and Anders Ankersen a long way away from their peers in the Pro class, and Kenny Herron's almost into that bucket as well with P22 in class. And also the other stories to tell, Callum Regarton once again taking pole position in one, well, no, not taking pole position here, but taking a very good qualifying session, and this time putting it on pole in the Pro-Am class with what is a P9 overall, and he has got the best part of what is 6 places between himself and the next Pro-Am driver of Ed Lack, as we're just waiting right now for this qualifying session to transition over to the build up to the sprint race. As we check in with you guys and girls in the chat, nothing more from yourselves at this point, and we are just checking in with our stewards, and we're not hearing anything at this time, but we are just waiting for the switch over now to the race. And of course, as we get ready to go racing here, as we are about to, it does look as though we're only moments away, and there is the transition, ladies and gentlemen. So now it is time for the build up to the sprint race, the opening race of tonight's proceedings, as we look to the grid. And as that grid begins to form here, we can see all of our drivers getting set. But before we focus on the grid, let's take you through the qualifying order in the end. So in the end, pole position going to Matt Caruana by the best part of 2.5 tenths over Rees Cowell. Fletcher and Edmonds lining up on the second row. Hakan Gustab and Harper on the third row. James Holman and Tom Mount on the fourth row. And then our first Pro-Am driver, Callum Reed Garton, line up P9 on the fifth row. A brilliant qualifying session from Garton. Landry alongside him, there's Callum Brandt and Oystein Hereford. Coming on to our next set, Mark Fletcher and Ennio Bava line up on the seventh row. Tom Dadswell and Edward Lack on the 8th row. Then we've got Robert De Sunic and Verschaft and Robert De Sunic line up on our 8th row. Sorry, our 9th row, I should say. Jean-Louis Deschamps and Didi De Vlaming completing our 10th row. Matthew Hodges and Kenny Hermans completing our 11th row. Boshoff and Beck on row number 12. And as we look down to complete our top 30, King and Hicks lining up P25, P26, Lemkins and DeBova, Ankerson and Norman completing our top 30. But right now, as we come away from the grid, in terms of the timing sheets, we now go to take a look at the grid as it lines up on circuit. As we can see here, we're a track temperature of 36 degrees centigrade. These tyres are going to get very hot as we now just wait to go racing. And I think we're just waiting on 1 or 2 more drivers, but it will be our pole position man, Matt Caruana, who takes us away from that pole position. And unfortunately, whilst his livery's not loaded in, we will try and fix that because we are missing a few drivers' liveries still. We'll fix that between the sprint and the feature race. What I can tell you right now is that Caruana will be looking to get the best possible result he can over the course of this. He will be looking to get an early breakaway from Rees Cowell, but can Carroll come back at him? As we see now all of our drivers pulling away one by one in the partial warm-up lap before we go racing with the manual file double file manual rolling start, and it will be Caruana who takes us to the green. And we can see Caruana here really hugging the back of the safety car. He knows he needs to get an early start here before everything kicks off into turn 1. And that will be his target as they make their way round. But we wait for him to take us away. And it's lights out and away we go for the sprint race as they all charge down towards turn number 1 here. And I think we are going to be hit with some technical issues as he makes his way down into the corner. But as they all come charging on down at this point, we can see it's 5 wide into turn 1. And as they come on through here, it's the situation right now where Caruana holds on to lead right now. As I do apologise for this, ladies and gentlemen, those technical issues from last time are coming back to haunt us. And we will just have to wait for things to calm down before we are able to get you the proceedings once again here. But I do apologise for this. But it does look as though Billy Fletcher with a move on the inside has taken the lead, but we are just waiting for this to clear, and we will be trying to fix this over the course of tonight. But Fletcher has taken the lead off of Caruana as they come all roaring down towards turn number 7. Here he goes defensive into the corner as further back right now. I can tell you that whilst they're all making their way on through and all things start to settle down here, it looks like the majority of our drivers have had a relatively okay start, although we have had some cars in a little bit of the wars further back down the order. And we can see here we've got Bounce battling with what is Arjan Kregel in the run down towards turn number 7 here, coming down into the hairpin as they make the way. And it looks as though there we've got a car just running straight on. That's Callum Reed Garton going onwards there, and I think Callum Reed Garton's had a disaster start, dropping all the way down the order as they make their way around. But we look back up towards our leader right now, Fletcher, who holds firm versus Caruana, and Fletcher making all those places at the start by making the daring move down the inside into turn 1, although we didn't see it completely. But as he comes charging on down once again through the sequence of corners here, which culminates in the Le Mans corner turn number 16, he's got Caruana all over the back of him as Griff Stad is also up multiple places here and is now going hunting once again. But as they come through the right-hander of 16, you have to imagine our pro drivers will be trying to settle down and break away from their pursuers as they all head down towards turn number 17. And as all our drivers make their way on through here, we can see further back we've got the situation whereby we've got a bit of a battle building up between an army of what is 6 BMW M4s, and it's being led by one Hackenschott as he makes his way on down, and he's trying to make the move on Peter Lemkins here on the Ferrari, as Lemkins is on the outside, shot on the inside, and he's going to go for the move here. Will he be able to get it done for P26 as they come on through? Goodness me, there's a Ferrari stop then, shot into the wall there. There was nowhere he could go with the Ferrari parked in the apex, but as he makes his way around right now, it is the case. It's the case that Caruana taking the lead there as they go on to lap number 2 versus Fletcher, and as they make their way down, Fletcher's going to try and hold the outside here through the corner as they make their way through turn number 3 and up into 4. And again, once these technical issues do calm down, we will be able to give you that more accurate prediction of where everyone is. But it looks so right now, Fletcher holding firm and gone back around the outside of Caruana through turns 3 and into 4, and he holds for the time being as he makes his way down towards the hairpin once again as they go through the big bend, and Caruana looking to that inside but going defensive versus Akun Gustavus. Reese Carroll there is made to go side by side versus what was Callum Brandt, and Brandt, well, he's gone for the spin, and Carroll meanwhile has moved on up as they make the way around and come through the corners once again. But as they make the way charging up towards what is turn number 10 for the time being, it's the situation right now. I think Reese Carroll's going to have a little bit of a spectre hanging over his head as we always see Jason Landry here in P11 giving pursuit of Harefield as they come through the corners. But as they make the way on through, and yet completely understand there, Xander, with regards to your eyes, and we are going to try and fix that for you over the course of proceedings. It is a situation right now, Jason Landry doing everything he can to try and chase after Oystein Hereford here, but as they make their way on through, it's the situation right now where as they come down towards what is the run into 15 and 16 once again, the Canadian driver here falling a little bit backwards. He's got Tony Verschaft giving pursuit. But as these guys make their way around, we can see Ed Lack here. Well, it's Jean-Louis Deschamps who is leading the pack right now in the Porsche there as they make their way through turn number 16. It's Jean-Louis Deschamps leading versus Ed Lack as they come out of 16 and run down towards what is the Sunset Bend once again as they head up towards 17. You can imagine Lack versus Deschamps here. What can Lack do versus the Porsche driver ahead of him? Well, I think he's got to stay firm right now, and he's got his teammate behind him, Hodges, as well. So the CXR Project Black drivers here having a good race when all things are considered so far as they make their way around to go on to another lap. But you can see ahead there, it looks as though Mark Fletcher has had a moment coming out of the final corner, and Fletcher's going to be vulnerable here in the run down towards turn 1 as they come in towards the heavy braking zone, but no way through this time. As further back, I can tell you that it's a build-up starting to occur as we have had a couple of drivers, well, it looks as though we've had a couple of drivers get it very wrong at the final corner. As we do look back right now, indeed, there has been a massive incident, and that's why we're getting those issues coming up. But it looks as though right now in the battle for the AM class, we've got Jochen Siegert here holding in the lead right now, and in the lead of the AM class, I should say, ahead of Stefan Tim Koopmans, who is trying to follow him as closely as possible as they make their way through turns 3 into 5 once again. Now, as they come on through at this point, it is the situation right now where we are seeing that Jochen Siegert just holding on, and he's got Koopmans trying to breathe down his neck, but Koopmans, whilst he's getting the run here, and he's making his way down towards the hairpin, it does look as though Koopman's not able to get the overspeed this time as they come through turn number 7 for what them is the third time of asking. And meanwhile, a little bit further back right now, whilst this is all going on, I can tell you that it's a situation where Dirt Bounce is down in P38. Indeed, he's got a whole pack of cars chasing afterwards. It looks as though they're Arjan Kregel having a bit of a moment alongside what was Oosterhuis as they make their way down, and Deirdre Verlaming as well having a bit of a difficult time through the corners here as we do see Verlaming in the Challenge Audi. As I do apologise for what you're seeing on screen right now, ladies and gentlemen, it is something that we are still trying to work on fixing here as they make their way through the corners once again. But as they come charging on through at this point, it does look as though it's the situation where we can see that Verlaming having a really bad start, and well, it's only going from good to bad to worse as the Pro-Am driver here makes his way down through the corners, through the sequence corners running up to 15 and 16. But whilst this is all going on, I can tell you that one driver has had a brilliant start to his race. In fact, is Dadswell here as Dadswell makes his way for the final corner. Now he's looking for the move on Tom Mayle as they come out of that final corner, and it does look as though Dadswell just trying to stay as close as he possibly can as they come rolling on down. And meanwhile, in the battle for the lead, we can see Caruana on the inside of Fletcher here as they go through turn 1, and Caruana is going to get the move done just about as they come through the corners and now up into 3. But it's Fletcher who comes back around the outside here to hold the inside into 4, and this is what Fletcher did last time, but Caruana this time keeps his nose in it through turn 5, and as they now go into Big Bend, you can see a little bit of door-to-door contact there, and Hakon Grestad's now going to come on through, seizing the opportunity, and oh goodness me, and Caruana is forced wide, and Grestad as well is made to go wide as now they come down towards the turn 7 hairpin, and it looks as though Tom Edmonds has gained multiple places just simply through the guys ahead of him fighting. And who would have thought that Edmonds making some major ground as they now come through to go go on to what is the second half of the lap, and as they make their way through turn 9 and up into 10, at this point Edmonds will be pleased as punch with this and hoping to put some pressure on Fletcher in a short order as they come through the right hander there of 10 and go up into 11, 12 and 13. But meanwhile, a little bit further back, I can tell you, whilst these guys are batting the way, we can see that Oistein Hereford here closing up to the back of Holman and up into P8 right now is Hereford, with Caruana and of course Gustad having that moment, but Caruana losing out massively for it all down to P4. Well, Hereford hasn't gained through that, but he's gained, for instance, other drivers have had, but Oistein Hereford continue his campaign of trying to build up the place as he makes his way on through. Meanwhile, further back here, we've got Matthew Hodges looking for the move on what is Heremans here as he tries to look to go around the outside of the pro driver into the inside line of 15, and as they make their way on through, no way through. This time, as we can see here, Hodges having to wait for that opportunity, and as they come into 16 right now, he is going to have to be a bit patient. Meanwhile, Holman versus Dadswell here. We see Holman going for the move, and it looks like Oistein Herford's looking for it as well, as Dadswell is going to get mobbed by two drivers. Well, it's only the one in the end, but you can see Dadswell trying to hold on behind as they make their way through the right hand of the hairpin, and as they come around it to go on to lap number 5, it is the situation right now with Dadswell really in a tricky position. He hasn't quite got the speed in the Porsche, but he does have the consistency, and that is holding on well. As we can see, our top 10 are starting to make that breakaway, and then it is our P11 driver of Verschaft, Tony Verschaft, who's holding on to the rest of the pack here in what is the Team Racing Netherlands machine, the BMW from the Netherlands, as he makes his way up towards turn number 3 once again. But as he comes on through at turn number 3, it does look as though right now Verschaft just trying to hold Robert de Soenik behind him. Robert de Soenik as well being one of the Team Racing Netherlands drivers as he makes his way through the corner here. And meanwhile, up front is the situation whereby we can see no real changes right now in our leaders. It's all calming down now after what's been a tumultuous opening half to the race. But as Robert de Soenik here gets the move on the inside of Verschaft, it's a customary move. It's a classic move into turn 7. But you can see it's the case that Fletcher here looks to come on through within the Altitude Esports driver. Now can Fletcher hold firm on the right here as he makes his way through the sequence of corners? He's going to be into the right hander here of turn 10 very shortly, but Verschaft has carried the momentum on through, and instead Fletcher has to hold behind right now as they make their way through that right hander and now head up towards 13. And whilst it was a good attempt from Fletcher, it just has not worked out, and as a result now he has to look to go for it again, and he's going to keep his eyes on Ed Lack behind. Lack trying to close up here, and Lack being your leader in the Pro-Am class as it currently stands, having got past Jean-Louis Deschamps, and is now chasing down Fletcher with a reckless abandon, trying to break away from Deschamps, and in the process he needs to put some pressure on the guys ahead to get a move on, because right now they're not moving fast enough. But meanwhile, speaking of leaders here in batting, we can see Hakon Gustad versus Caruana, and Caruana getting very close. A little bit of tap on the rear end of Gustad's car as they make their way up towards turn 17 into the final corner. Go no love lost between these two, because the reason they're battling one another like this right now is because they made contact on the start of this lap, but they both recovered it. But you can see Caruana getting the move done here, and I think Gustad getting ready to fight back in the run down towards turn 1 as they go on to lap number 6, and as they come roaring on down right now, you can see it's the case that Caruana going defensive, and we see Gustad flashing his lights, I think, to try and send the message, look, I'm not trying to come on through, as we have had a car get it very wrong further down the order. And well, goodness me, and that's unfortunately, we're just trying to decipher who's had the major moment there. And that's what unfortunately happens and seems to be kicking off the technical issues, if you do wonder, ladies and gentlemen. It's when somebody has a major issue, and as a result, multiple overtakes start occurring on our register, which is off screen right now. But as we wait for it to calm down once again, I would say that in terms of drivers who've had a major moment, we have had, so far over the course of the race, the best part of what is 5 retirements. Colin Martin, Stefan Tim Koopmans, Lucas Romano, Stefan Gamble Rasmussen. In fact, we had a 6th one of Dirk Bounce and Ennio Bava as well. So 6 retirements in this race as we are just waiting for the IT to settle down. And as we can see here, it's the case that Fletcher holding on to lead right now with Tom Edmonds chasing after him a bit further down that order, as we're still waiting for some of these overtakes, quote-unquote overtakes, where it's drivers who have gone into the pits for those to clear. It's a case, as I think further down the order, we have got, well, we've got the back marker here of Dumbrecht making his way around in P49, having done some repair work to the car as things finally settle down. But a bit further up the order, what I can tell you is that drivers who've had a nightmare day at the office in this sprint race, we've got Arjan Bakker here in what is the BMW, the Team Racing Netherlands at BMW here. He's holding on to P44 right now, and he's ahead of Callum Reed-Garton, who was our pole position man in the Pro-Am class, as he makes his way through towards what is down towards turn number 7. They come through turn 6 here, the long right-hander, but as they come charged on through the corners right now, it is the case that we can see that Arjan Bakker just simply not having a good day. Neither is Garton, but looking away from the guys down towards the back of the pack, towards one of the heads of the midfield pack here. Here's the situation right now, where Jakob Boshoff holding on to that lead for the time being here in P18 as he makes his way in the Raw down towards turn number 17. And right now he is P3 in the Prime class here, the South African, the Ignium Motorsport Spark driver, as he makes his way down, holding on for the time being. Now, will he be able to convert this into a podium in the end, as we're hearing that Lemkens and Holmer, well, it's the case that Lemkens on the inside here of Holmer as they come through the right-hander of 17. And you see Holmer's going to try and hold all the way around, but being on that outside line, if he can do it, and Lemkens gives him the space as the RP Motorsports Juniors drive shows the great sportsmanship there. They come across the timing line to go on to the penultimate lap, and Lemkens has now got to try and hold it all the way around the outside as he tries to do so here. And it looks as though as the camera pans round, it's going to be the BMW who's made its way ahead, and that is Holmer, who holds on to what is P6 in class as they make their way into turn 3. But behind them, it's the case Phil McDougall as well. Well, in fact, it's P8 in class. We see Phil McDougall here trying to close up as well, the 6R Project Black driver. And as they make their way through turn 3, 4, 5, and now through 6, it's the case that McDougall doing everything he can to try and close up, but not able to get close enough right now in that BMW. As again, it's one of those situations where whilst we can't quite see everything that's happening, we're trying to keep our eyes on what's going on right now. And I apologise for these technical issues once again, ladies and gentlemen. We will try to get them resolved during the course of the break. We are doing everything about this, but meanwhile, looking from our midfield to our leaders once again, you can see it's Tom Edmonds still chasing after what is Billy Fletcher leading at the moment. Matt Caruana in P3. He's got past Hakan Grostad and he's now breaking away as they have got the back marker there of what is the Porsche driver moving out the way. And as the Porsche driver does, the next back marker for them is Lucas Romano. But Romano right now, in terms of where he is on circuit, he's making his way all the way through turn 17 as Romano has actually come back out of the pits. My apologies, I thought he had retired. No, it's the case that the car was in the pits being repaired. We still do have 51 of our draw. In fact, we've got 54 of our 55 starters out on circuit. The only two retirees we have 53 still in the race are Dirtbouts and Ennio Baba. But right now, as our leaders go on to the final lap, we've got the white flags out here. It's the case that Fletcher still leading by 3/10 of a second versus Tom Edmonds as they come roaring down towards turn number 1 here. And now this is the do or die moment where effectively Edmonds will now need to try and size up a move, or will he have to go defensive versus Caruana, who goes onto the gravel and just catches the car. And Caruana pushing so hard in order to try and close up. As meanwhile, further back, I think it's the case that we've had a bit of a moment into turn number 1, not from the drives we're currently looking at, but a bit further up. And we see that Landry in P9 right now. I think it was Reese Carroll looking for a move versus Landry, but it hasn't quite worked out for Carroll as the Briton makes his way around from Drive Dead Racing. And as he comes through turn number 6 and up into 7, it's one of those situations right now where I think he's got to try and find a place to send the move. He's looking for it into the hairpin here, and you can see just in front of them, we do have Oystein Hereford going for the move here, and it's Reese Carroll who can't find a way through for P9 as they now come through these sequence of corners from 8, 9 and up into 10. But as they come charging on through, we do look back up towards our leader right now, and it is the case that we can see Edmonds and Caruana all over the back of Fletcher here as they make their way through the sequence of corners up towards turn 13. And as they come through the right-hander right now, it's the case that Edmonds, well, he's going defensive here as Tom Edmonds as they make their way through, and as they come charging on down towards what is turns 14 and 15, a long way to go, of course, to those corners. It is the case that Edmonds really under major pressure, and this is giving Fletcher breathing room here as we see Edmonds have to go defensive into 14. And as they make their way now through the left-hander of 15 and come down into 16 into the Mont corner, you can see Hakan Grostad also getting into the pitch here as the RD Simsport driver does everything he can to hold on. And as they make their way coming down the long straight here, down the Allman straight, you can see Fletcher doing a little weave there. I think just a bit of a teaser. But as they make their way on down, you see Edmonds defending, and I think Edmonds is going to be able to hold it on the inside. Caruana goes deep here to try and go all the way round, but it is the case that as they make their way out the final corner, it is going to be Billy Fletcher who takes the win in the Pro Class in the end by the best part of just under a second. And in the drag race to the line, it is Edmonds ahead of Caruana for P2, P3, and it's Grostad P4, Tom Mal P5 as they all cross the timing line. James Holman P6, Oystein Hereford P7, Dadswell P8, Landry P9, Reese Carroll P10, Dasunik Vershaft, Mark Fletcher. Ed Lack meanwhile takes the win in the Prime Class there in P14. A brilliant drive from Ed Lack, and as they all continue to come across, we can see P2 in the Prime Class is Matthew Hudges, followed by Jakob Boshoff here. And then it's P4 to Anthony Beck in what is the Pro-Am, followed by Ben Hicks in P5. And meanwhile, in the AM class, it's Jochen Seeger in the end who takes the win. P26 overall and first in the AM class. He's crossed that timing line ahead of Matt Emmons P2. And then it was P3 to Arjan Kregel in the AM class. Oosterhuis and Franken finishing P4, P5 as they come across that timing line there. And that completes your sprint race, ladies and gentlemen, which, whilst it wasn't the most transparent of races in terms of what you could see on screen, definitely very intense, and it has setting us up for something phenomenal going into the feature race, as right now all of our drivers begin to make their way back towards the paddock. And well, for the top guys in particular, Fletcher, Edmonds and Caruana, with some fantastic fighting between the three of them, they're going to be definitely looking to fight. And I think it'll be the case that Caruana right now will be absolutely fuming at the fact he missed out on that opportunity to fight for the win, and in the end had to settle for the fight for P2. But still a good finish. And the fight for P2, but Tom Edmonds in the end bringing home that P2 quite comfortably, coming out of the final corner, just able to go defensive, and Caruana not able to find the swing all the way round. But meanwhile, as they make their way on through, it is the case that we will be right back, ladies and gentlemen, in approximately what will be 2 to 3 minutes for our post-race interviews with our race winners. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry to the slight delay with regards to getting ready for these post-race interviews, but our drivers have just been making their way out of their cars and into the interview area, and we'll be starting off with Billy Fletcher. Give us a brief moment. We'll have him in here very shortly. Hello, Billy. Can you hear me?
Hello there, Paul.
Billy, a great start to your day at Sebring with a win in the Pro class. How does it feel to have taken the win?
That was hard work, good fun. As I said, we managed to get a jump on Matt into the start, and I knew Reese had got a good jump as well. So, lucky enough, Reese had that twitch on the outside and let me get through. But I knew Matt was going to be faster than me on pure pace. I knew if he got past me and I didn't pass him back, he'd probably run away from me. But I was like, race smart. I see him go for it in sunset. I thought I'm going to let him go, get the run back. Managed to hang on the outside a couple of times with him. That was fantastic. That's what this is all about, this league. That sort of close racing. We're all on the same setup. That was great fun.
Oh, indeed, it was fantastic to see the battling between yourself and Caruana and how it all settled down in the end. But I do have to ask, when you could see that Caruana was battling with Grubstad, particularly when they both went off at the big bend midway through the race, and then towards the very end when you saw Caruana having to fight his way past Tom Edmonds, were you breathing a sigh of relief at the fact that your number one rival from last season was caught up with other drivers?
When Hakon was racing him, yes. But I mean, I've got no quibble about the rest of the drivers. Like, as soon as I see Tom was behind me, I was like, "Oh, here we go. I ain't going to get this lightly. I'm going to have Tom now hassling me for the next 5 minutes or whatever it was." And I was kind of glad that Matt was catching Tom up, because I thought to myself, if I make one somewhere, Tom's going to be on me. Whereas if he's worrying about Matt catching him, it would give me a little bit of a chance to hopefully run away a little bit, which obviously at the end we had a nice chunk of a gap once we finished.
Oh, indeed, it was very close between you guys. And now looking ahead to the feature race, so what are your thoughts given the fact that you'll be starting right from the back here and it is a very tight circuit?
Patience. Pick people up when we can. I won't worry too much about the result. We'll just do what we can do. The Audi's really sketch around here. Thankfully, with the Enduro setup, I've got a little bit more traction control to play with, which I don't have on the Sprint setup. So, yeah, fingers crossed. We're not going to push anything. You know, if the likes of Caruana and Tom just disappear off through the field, they can crack on with it. I'm just going to run my own race.
Well, we look forward to seeing how you get on in the feature race. But until then, well done on the win, and we'll see you out on circuit shortly.
Cheers, Paul.
Here and there from Billy Fletcher, very happy with the result, but also very aware of the fact the close battling between himself and the other drivers in the Plocast, whether it be Hakon Gustad, Tom Edmonds, alternatively Matt Caruana. But now let's have a catch up with Ed Lack, our winner, of course, in the Pro-Am. Hello, Ed. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Ed, looks as though it was a tough one out there, but in the end you pulled through to pick up the win in the sprint race. How does it feel to have taken the win at Sebring?
Yeah, good. It was actually a bit of a surprise, if I'm being honest, because I thought I was in second the whole time. I didn't realise that Callum had some misfortune.
Yes, it looked as though he had a major incident. So go on.
Yeah, so I was just keeping my nose clean, basically. Got through turn one, which is always good. And then just tried to keep it clean. Had a little bit of an incident with the Shons later in the race, but I managed to get away from that fine. So I'm happy with how that went overall with the race. And P2 for Matt Hodges as well, my teammate. So we're happy with that.
Indeed, we saw yourself and Hodges quite close together throughout from the start of the race through to its conclusion. Was there a little bit of a teamwork aspect there in terms of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, or were you just both running to similar pace?
To be honest, no, we hadn't really discussed anything about that. We knew we were close, but it never really got to a point where he was that close. So it's one of those, we're both just happy to race, generally speaking. So if it comes to it, then I'm sure we'll probably get our elbows out. So yeah, whatever happens, really.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear. And now looking ahead to the feature race, of course, you'll be starting quite far back compared to your peers. What's the plan?
Surviving lap 1 is the main plan, and then we'll just see where the rest of the race takes us and try and work our way forward from there.
Well, I wish you the best of luck in the feature race. We look forward to seeing you out there. But until then, congratulations on the win once
Cheers.
again.
Thank you. Yeah, catch you later.
Hearing there quickly from Ed Lack, very happy with that result, and also for his teammate picking up P2 behind him. But now we must come on to our winner in the AM class, and that was Jochen Siegert, of course. Hello, Jochen, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, Paul. Hi.
Jochen, a brilliant drive from yourself. How was it out there on the circuit, and how's it feel to have taken the win in the sprint race?
It's absolutely great to win such a race, especially when like this year, where I was really scared in the beginning to let's say because of our incidents in the last race. So I was absolutely, first of all, I was happy to survive the first 2 laps, and the rest of the race was interesting. I tried to concentrate, and that's it. It's very easy. But I want to turn the thing around, Paul. May I ask you a question to you?
Sure.
How do you manage to do such wonderful, perfect commentaries?
Well, step one.
Was a joke.
I was going to say, step one, it all relies on the absolutely fantastic drivers, because then I'd ask you, how do you drive so smoothly and so perfectly?
No, thank you. I think I didn't. It's meanwhile it's a lot of practice. Yes, that's what I have to admit. I think all of us we are practicing quite a lot meanwhile, and I think that's basically the secret behind.
Well, going from also go.
Practicing and getting a better feeling now the second season for the BMW, how it works, what it does. It's like learning the character of this car.
Indeed. Well, it can definitely tell by the way the results are coming through for you. And now looking ahead to the feature race, what's your plan for Sebring over 60 minutes, given how tight it is around here?
I don't say anything. Let's see. Let's try the best. Let's try to stay fair, not to make mistakes as I did in the last race, to get in the wrong way, in an unsafe way back to the track and stuff like that. Just being careful, having fun, and being fair to the others. That's it. Let's see.
Fingers crossed for you. But until then, congratulations on the win, and we look forward to seeing you out on the circuit again shortly.
Thank you very much, Paul. No, and please carry on with those wonderful TV sessions in the evening.
Will do, my friend. You take care.
Yeah? Okay, bye-bye.
Jochen there, being a very kind, lovely chap, and he is one of the most loved guys down in the paddock, as you guys and girls can probably tell. But we will be back very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, for the build-up to race number 2. It's likely we will be back within the next 5 minutes or so. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss it. And in the meantime, we'll try and get those pesky technical issues resolved once and for all. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and apologies for the slight delay in returning there. We have tried to do some more work in resolving those technical issues, but I think we may still be experiencing them over the course of the evening tonight. So if they do reappear, I do apologise. We are running with those issues quite badly at the moment, but we will see what can be done as we make our way into the second half of tonight's proceedings, into the feature race, of course. And with 2.5 minutes to go before we start to form the grid, it becomes a major challenge in of itself there. And indeed, Apex Racing Academy, our sponsor, we saw a word from just moments ago. A number of drivers may be using their services currently to help them out with Sebring in terms of learning the circuit, but not only that, finding the best way to run about it. So if you are interested, be sure to check out apexracingac.com today. But otherwise, now we look to the build up to the racing, and indeed with the full reverse grid, it's going to be one of those situations where some drivers who had that disastrous sprint race, particularly when we're thinking of drivers who had a disastrous one, we've heard that Callum Reed-Garton in particular, it went from good to bad to worse on just literally the run into turn 7, this corner here, where we did briefly catch a glimpse of it all going wrong for him, and then later on in the race it only got even worse for the Pro-Am driver here, and he will be looking now to turn this one around immediately into a win. That will be his target in the Pro-Am class. He will need to get a win in order to really keep himself alive in the opening rounds of the season. But with 1.5 minutes remaining, we continue to see all the drivers coming on through. And as they do right now, another driver who was involved in a number of incidents, and from what we're hearing from you guys and girls in the chat, Callum Reed-Garton having a major couple of moments, and indeed some questionable driving from other drivers. What we're hearing, as we can see, Reese Carroll there making his way back into the pits. But we go from one of our drivers there to Tom Edmonds. Only moments ago we did have a working livery for, and now that livery has decided to do a disappearing act on us, so we will be trying to get that back as soon as possible. It does look as though we are having everything possibly go wrong with technical issues for that, and I can only apologise as much as I can, ladies and gentlemen, because it's a bit unfortunate, and I must admit it's not been seamless tonight. That's probably the best way to describe it, but still we press on all the same as we see Edmonds making his way on through what is the final corner here, and we're now only a minute away from setting the grid for the feature race, of course. As we can see our drivers making their way on around the circuit, and whilst they're going around, it is the case that, well, with what is Edmonds there doing everything he can in order to get the best possible results tonight as Tom Edmonds comes on through. All of our drivers will now be thinking about their strategies. What can they do in order to get the best possible result? As we see Billy Fletcher here making his way on through the sequence. Of course, Fletcher will have the hardest job of them all. Of course, he'll be starting right from the back. So for the Briton, he will now have to think about where can he gain those places? Where can he avoid the carnage, stay clear of it all, and just simply make the gains? Well, he's now got to put it all to the test and put all the theory into practice, because it is time for us to get underway with the feature race. That's 60 minutes of what will be some fantastic racing, and we hope, and we will expect to see it get very close indeed. But right now, as we clear our screens and we look to the grid, it is the case. And as we can see, he'll be Tim Koopmans and Peter Dombrett lined up on the front row. It will then be what is Harper, and I believe we are doing a full lap around the circuit in order to get the tyres warmed up, so we're not going to be doing a partial lap. It will be a full rolling start lap, but it's Tim Koopmans and Peter Dombrett who line up on the front row, Elliot Harper and Navarro Dabova in row 2, Brandt and Jeremy Dabova on row 3, Stefan Koopmans and Lucas Romano on row 4, Colin Martin and Alexander Batak on row number 5, and as we look a little bit further down the order, we have got Garton and Backer line up on row number 6, and keep an eye out for Garton as he'll be trying to come on through very quickly. It will be Deschamps and Sled on row number 7, Peter Kupiers and Addy on row number 8, Jürgen Nocker and Didi Vlaming on row number 9, Stephen Norman and Bland on row number 10, and then heading outside our top 20, Kurt Van Hernack and Gus Franken on row number 11, followed by Oosterhuis and Kriegel. And as we continue to go down there, we see King and Emmons lining up on what is the 13th row, row 14 comprised so you can see it and Phil McDougall as they all pull away to do this warm-up lap. There'll be Lemkins and Holman line up on row 15, Lundqvist and Lovesley row 16, Hicks and Beck on row 17, Boshoff and Hodges on row 18. And as we look further down, as all of our drivers pull away here, we can then see it will be the case that forming up on row number 14, Jochen Seeger and Phil McDougall. Then as we see here, in fact we've already covered these guys to some extent, we look a bit further down and it will be what is Ankerson and Herman's line up on row 19, Lack and Fletcher, Mark Fletcher on row 20, Verschaft and Dasunik on row 21, Rees Carrot and Lantry on row 22, Dadswell and Hereford on row 23, Holman and Mount on row 24, and as we then come down to last here, it's Hakan Gustav and Karan line up on row 25, and then completing row 26 will be Tom Edmonds and Billy Fletcher, and Dirk Bouts with his retirement early on in the race starts at the very back on row number 27. But that is the grid, and now we look to our race info here. Once again, as you can see, the track temperature has now come down somewhat. We've got an ambient temperature of 24 degrees centigrade as we are in the different part of the day. But now as we look to go racing here, as all of our drivers are building up, we look back to the front of the field as we see Stefan Koopmans here still having some technical issues by the looks of things as he makes his way on through. Navarro alongside him here as they make their way through the sequence of corners, and they'll be looking to go racing quite rapidly. The Audi R8 driver, the youngster of course, will be trying to siphon his way into that lead and run away with that AM lead as early as he possibly can as all our drivers make their way on through. And with regards to YouTube, Xander, I do apologise, Xander. It's probably going to be the case that those issues are still going to occur. We have done everything we can to fix them, but it's something I'm going to need to look at outside of the broadcast of tonight. So if we do have the flashing of the cars or the cars appearing in and out, I can only apologise. We'll try to do everything I can to fix it for round number 3. It is a noted technical issue, folks, and I can assure you, much like it's not to the comfort of your eyesight, it is not to my comfort to have that issue there. But I'll try and bring everything, even with the cars appearing in and out. We should be getting some upgrades to the equipment by mid-December, which will really make a significant difference. But yes, this is not the standard you come to expect in terms of the broadcasting, and I completely put my hands up with that. Don't blame NXTGEN for that one, blame me. But right now, as we wait for all of our drivers to make their way down towards 14 in this warm-up and into the manual double file rolling start, we can see everybody starting to come together in the long run on down. And as they come all the way through the last sequence of corners now, and then it'll be the long run from 16 to 17 where everyone will start to take that breather and get ready to go racing. And it is going to be a very tense throughout. We have to expect there is going to be some very close-knit action as we look a little bit further back here, and we can see all the way down in P39 the Drive Dead Racing driver of Rees Carroll here, who after what was a difficult sprint race, he'll be looking to try and come up through the field quite rapidly here, starting P8 in his class, P39, P40 overall, and he will be in a prime position to do so. As now we look to the front of the field, and we can see it is going to be our AM drivers of Stephen Koopmans and Navarro Dabova who take us away for the start of the feature race. And it's lights out and away we go as we see Barney there waving the green flag. We go racing once again here at Sebring as they all make their way down. But you can see already Elliot Harper getting a very strong run as they make their way down into turn number 1 for the first time. And as they all come into the corner here, it looks as though we've got everybody making their way through safely, although Koopman seems to be phasing in and out of the universe very rapidly. But meanwhile, as they all come down side by side, we see we've got one of the Team Racing Netherlands BMWs there getting a little bit wrong. That's Arjan Bakker, who now holds firm on the inside here. But now we are starting to see them all concertina their way through the opening sequence of corners and going into the big bend here. And as they make their way through what is turn 5 and into 6 now, things do start to settle down a little bit. Although I say that, we can see Colin Martin here battling with what is Stefan Gambel, Rasmussen and Garton. Martin in the middle of the trio as they make their way into the corner. This is where it all went wrong for Garton on the opening lap. No such thing happens this time, fortunately for the Pro-Am drivers. They make their way through 8 and 9 and then head all the way up into turn number 10 as they charge on through. And it does seem as though it's a much calmer start compared to what we saw previously. As we look a bit further down the order here, and you can see in the rear of your picture, you've got Jürgen Knocker there in the mix of things, and Gus Franken just ahead of him. And then further back, we've got Kurt Van Hoornacker here, who finds himself on the back of a battle between what is Paul King, Oosterhuis, and Phil McDougall there as they all make their way through the sequence of corners. Now Van Hoornacker trying to find his way through, and he's got Lovesley and Blomqvist behind, would love that opportunity. You can see George Bland in the rear of the picture there, trying to also get into the mix here, as he does have Matt Emmons battling for him for position in class as they make their way through the right-hander and now come charging up towards what is the final sector. Now as they make their way up towards 14 and 15, side by side they go here, and it looks as though Bland just not able to get the move on Kregel as they come on through, and it's Arjan Kregel in particular, as Matt Emmons has actually been overtaken by Mark Fletcher behind, and Kregel in the Audi there on the outside as they all come through, serpentine their way through 16, and now they charge down towards 17. You can see how the field all clustering together here in that long run, and as we look back up towards our leader here, we can see Elliot Harper holding firm, and he has taken the lead as he makes his way down onto the next lap. So it's Elliot Harper leading after lap 1 ahead of Callum Brandt in P2, followed by Stefan Tim Koopmans in P3, then Jeremy DeBover in P4 trying to make the move on the AM driver into turn 1. I think he's going to have this one on the inside here as they all make their way on through. Then in P5 we've got Navarro DeBover, followed by Callum Reed-Garton in P6, making those early gains as we anticipated would. Lucas Romano in P7. Then it's Colin Martin in P8. I'm going to go defensive here versus Stefan Gamble-Rasmussen as they go through the left-hander. And then we do have Jean-Louis Deschamps behind in P10, followed by Alexander Batak in P11. James Slate in P12 as they come through. Then Matthew Addy in P13. There's Arjan Bakker in P14, followed by what is Didi Vlaming in P15. And then we've got Stephen Norman and Phil McDougall making their way on through 16th and 17th each, as we can see him at Dougal falling a little bit back in the BMW here, and then further back it looks like we've got quite the battle starting to build for P18. Jürgen Knocker at the head of this pack, as we can see Paul King on the inside here on Peter Kupiers, and of course remember Kupiers battling Knocker for the AM class. It's the case that Paul King in the Prams just trying to find his way on through, and he does so as they make their way now up through 8 and 9, and as they come through it's Peter Kupiers who's holding on. He's got Daniel Blomqvist behind him, and we can see here the Team Racing Netherlands driver, well in fact as he makes his way up into the braking zone here, trying to hold that inside line, making his way on through. And meanwhile behind we've got Peter Kupiers here, who is trying to find his way into the positions. We see the RP Motorsport driver doing everything he can in order to hold position, but it does look as though Lovesley makes the move here. Lovesley up into P21, Kupiers down into P22, and then even further back it's the case we've got Mark Fletcher who's holding on to that P23 for now. The Altitude Esports BMW there doing everything he needs to as things currently stand, just to give himself a bit of clear track, and he's currently P4 in the Pro class as he's following what is Peter Kupiers through at 14, 15 and up into 16. But behind them we see Van Hoornacker here in a battle with what is Matt Evans in the Pro class, and George Bland now ahead on the McChange B2 driver as they make their way down. Oh goodness me, and that looks to be Matt Evans into the wall there on what is the corner, and Matt Evans into the wall on the exit of 16. It has gone horrifically wrong for Matt Evans, as behind you see Tony Verschaft making his way past what is there Daniel Holmer and chasing after Kenny Heremans as the Team Racing Netherlands driver makes his way around once again here, and already the fastest lap has been set as a 1:59 by Elliot Harper, our leader, as they all make their round to complete lap number 2 and go on to lap number 3. But behind these guys it's all kicking off, as we can see we've got a double dose of 3 wide here in the run down towards turn number 1, and as they all come down to the heavy braking zone it does look as though we've got Reece Cow and Tom Mao here battling, as we see Reece Cow ahead of Tom, behind Tom Edmonds here, as Tom Edmonds goes defensive. They're all squirming for position at this point, and under braking they go, and you can see how they all concertina together. Oh goodness me, I think that was there, that was, well, that by looks in that was Tom Edmonds just having the nose of his car cut off by the car in front of Reece Cow, and that was Arjan Kregel, and now Kregel is being passed by Reece Cow, and I think for what was the Pro driver, he had nowhere to go, and Kregel I think didn't even know he was tapped as they make their way down towards turn number 7 once again. 5 minutes of this hour race complete, and as they come roaring on down, this time it's a situation whereby they all start to settle down once again, but it's been a much less punchy race compared to the sprint race at the start, but Gillis, we've got a much longer race here, and that is the difference between the two as they make their way on through and up towards turn number 10, and we can see Reece Cow trying to make the move on what is Holman. He goes to the inside here, it's going to be a classic move. Oh goodness me, a little bit of a tap there on the back of Holman, and that's the trouble as well with how close these corners are together. You go for a move, you go on the power, and then you end up tapping the guy behind, and you can see now everybody concertinaing together As we see here, it's Tom Mount ahead of Gustad as they all come down towards what is the turns at 14 and 15. You can see Hakon Gustad behind in the McLaren, the Ignium Motorsport McLaren, as he comes on through and as he makes his way under all goodness feet. And that's Tony Verschaft here, and we've had quite an instant by the looks of things. We've lost Tony Verschaft, and that's also Reese Carroll, who just cannot seem to get a break from instance here as he rejoins behind the pack. And I think the Drive Dead Racing driver here is having a day to forget at the circuit of Sebring as they make their way down the straight once more here. The back straight heading down the almost straight towards turn number 17. But looking from towards the back of our pack up towards the front right now, Elliot Harper just making that run away in the lead right now as we'd expect him to. As we can see here, Callum Reed-Garton up into P5. He's now got Stephen Koopmans ahead of him. Koopmans trying to hold on to that P4 in the AM lead. Garton, of course, the Pro-Am driver here trying to come on through to chase afterwards. Jeremy DeVova ahead of him. In C, DeVova not too far away. And then further back, it's the case that Matthew Addy in P11 right now. The AM driver here chasing after Alexander Batak, and these two are going at it quite a bit because they're going after Gamborg Rasmussen, who's just ahead of them as they make their way on through and charge all the way up towards what is turn number 7. Now, for those wondering, how did a pair of pros get to the front of the field so rapidly? Well, it was the case that both Harper and also Callum Brandt had very poor performances in the sprint race, where they finished right towards the back of the field after being involved in a number of incidents. As a result, when we reversed the grid, because they finished on what was effectively the lead lap or up to one lap down off the leaders, they are permitted to start according to the reverse grid rather than be forced to the back. So that's why, if you're wondering how did two pros end up at the front, but do remember both the sprint race and also the feature race are valued equally, so it's not as though the fact they're starting towards the front for the feature race is that they gain massively over the course of all the points tonight. They give themselves a great opportunity to get some huge points in the feature race, but remember, it's 25 points for a win in both races, so it's not going to help them if they can't match that up with a good sprint race result. So I wouldn't worry too much about the fact they might be gaining some major points here. And of course, remember, whilst they're on the pace now, you never know what can happen later in the race when they start to come up behind traffic. But meanwhile, we can see Stephen Koopmans here and what is Garton, as Garton's coming through on the inside. This is a P4 effectively in the run down towards what is turn at number 17. And as they come into the braking zone here, I think it's the case that Koopmans is just going to back off, and with connectivity issues by the looks of things as well, that may be something that he's just wise to do so there. But we hope that's answered your question at Vintage Toy Rush, as we can see K Teams in the Facebook chat tuning in as always as well. But looking away from the chats to the racing as it carries on down towards turn at number 1 once again. We can see the situation right now, whereas all of our drivers come charging on down towards what is turn number 1 this time around. It does look as though a situation where Navarro Dabova right now has got rid of Gamborg Rasmussen in terms of that pressure. It's just focusing on, but the real pressure that is building a bit further back right now is Hakon Gustad here, who's looking for the move on the Holman down into turn 1 this time around as they all come roaring on down into the braking zone. It looks like Hakon Gustad gets a simple move on the inside there and now holds the position, but ahead of them, whilst this is happening, we can see Herriman's here in the Lamborghini Huracan coming from the inside of 3, but he's going to be outside of 4 to inside of 5, and he gets the move down Jürgen Knocker here as he makes his way between the AM drivers. And remember, Herriman's in the pro class here, just trying to get his way on through and chase down Dadswell, who's just ahead of him. As meanwhile, just a bit further up the road, I'm hearing that James Slates has had a major run. We've got a Ferrari turns there at the turn 7 hairpin, and the RP Motorsports rookies driver having a moment and not to want to remember as he makes his way out back onto the circuit right now. And he's lost a number of places, and we will try to bring you what happened there very shortly as he now makes his way round once again. And in terms of those instances or those moments, we will try to bring you what's happened very shortly as we continue to look around right now. And here is what happened to James Slates. So this was only moments ago, and this was in the rundown towards the hairpin here. Now he does have what was the Audi R8 on his inside here. Does he turn in and finds a face full of Audi there? He does indeed, with the nose of the Audi, and that is what caused Slates to go for a spin. And I believe that was the Audi Adidi Di Verlaming, the McChange B1 driver, who's now in P15. And he'll probably be thinking, well, why didn't he see me on the inside? Well, that's one for them to take up with the stewards afterwards, if they so desire, or sort out in the driver debriefing room as they make their way down towards the end of another lap. But behind you can see Mark Fletch here, the Altitude Esports driver, trying to find his way around the outside of what is Arjan Bakker. Bakker lets him through around the outside there, but doesn't make it easy for the Altitude Esports driver there. Whilst they're not racing the same car, you can see Bakker obliging, but the bare minimum to oblige, making Fletcher literally go all the way around and almost take the grille off the front of that BMW as they make their way down towards turn at number 1 once again here. And as they come into left hand, you can see some drivers coming out the pits right now. That's the CXR Project Black machine of what is Ed Lack Lack, which is coming out the pit, and you can see it there in the rear of your picture, a lap down. And Lack, of course, our winner in the Pro-Am race in the sprint, where it's the case that now he's right at the back and not having a good time at the office, as meanwhile we can see Fletcher trying to find his way through, and we see Paul King here on the inside of what is Backer, and I think this is going to be a pretty straightforward move, although I say that it looks so King's Knight have the best of runs out of 5, and as they come through the big bend of 6, it is the situation right now where he's going to have Backer all on the inside here, and he's got to be careful here, King, because he's got Lovesey behind as well, and Lovesey trying to find a way through the 2 Ignium drivers here, racing for different divisions of Ignium, which should be pointed out, but as they make the way out of turn 7, he's been able to make the move, King, but it wasn't an easy one, and now Lovesey's got to try and find a way on through as well, and this time the problem for Lovesey in particular is he does have the back marker of Lack, who's trying to cut him through. As it does look as though actually Lovesey gets it done quite simply up into turn 10 here, and it's the case that Backer does not battle this one as much as he may have could have. But battle high, and we see Ed Lack also trying to find his way on through right now. He's in that difficult situation where he is a back marker, so as a result he's got to have a lot of pace to cut his way through because of the blue flags. But meanwhile, further up the road, I can tell you in the battle for what is P8 here, we can see that it's Colin Martin coming from Rasmussen, of course 2 different drivers in 2 different classes, and it's Rasmussen here who's having to try and hold off the fast charging Navarro de Bova behind, as we see the Switchback Motorsport Ferrari of what is Rasmussen here, the Danishman, making his way down the Allman Straight here, down towards turn at number 17, and as he comes charging on through at this point, you can see a little bit further back, we do have Stephen Norman trying to get his way past Addy here, and Addy will not be best pleased with this. He will want to go hunting after the drives ahead. They go side by side through the corner, and you can see Addy holding on to that outside line, trying to keep it close. There's a tiny bit of contact by the looks of things, and in the end Norman's up, and Addy in fact has lost out to Phil McDougall as well, as he now has 2 Pro-Am drivers between him. But Addy's going to come back here. He's not going to let this one go down without a fight, as he makes his way roaring on through, and as they come charging around through the circuit right now, it is the case that Matthew Addy doing everything he needs to stay in the hunt here, but he's losing time compared to the Am drivers ahead of him, as we can see Phil McDougall coming through finally there into turn 3, but meanwhile Navarro de Bova chasing after Alexander Attack right now, and Rasmussen just ahead as they make their way through the sequence of corners here. And in fact Navarro de Bova losing out, I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, he's just lost a couple of places there as they make their way on down through the corners, when in fact no, he was holding that position, no, he was passed in fact, and we will take a look back at how that happened. In fact, this was only moments ago. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. This was Rasmussen coming through. So there's the confusion there. I was wondering about the 2 switchback machines ahead of him, and it does look as though, as we return to the live camera, instead it was Alexander Batak who got the move done. And how did Alexander Batak get through is your big question. Here is Alexander Batak coming through into turn 1, and he had a lot of momentum versus Navarro de Bova, and he just simply went through on the inside there. And Switchback Motorsports now moving up the order in the AM class as we look back to those live timing screens once again here. And meanwhile, as they all make their way through into the latter half of the circuit, we look a bit further up the road, and we can see Jeremy de Bova here being passed by Callum Regatta, who's going to try and go the inside to outside route here through turn number 16. Now this is very brave stuff from Callum Regatta, but he knows he wants every possible point on the table, and Callum Regatta's ahead right now as they come charging down towards what is turn at number 17. Now can Callum Reed hold on here, as we can see de Bova looking for that move, but Callum Regatta goes very defensive into the final corner here as they come roaring on through the right-hander. You can see the Belgian has had to hold off versus the Brits as they make their way around once again, going on to what is for them lap number 8 very shortly. And as they come across here, Callum Regarton up into P3, up into the lead of the Pro-Am class, and now he's going to try and make the break. That is for certain. With almost 15 minutes this race completed right now, and Garton doing everything to make up for what was an absolutely dismal sprint race as he makes his way into turn 3. We're looking from these guys back to DD Verlaine here down in P17 right now. What can he do to close up to Matthew Addy? Remembering that the Pro-Am driver here, he's not in the same class as Addy, but Addy has proven to be a thorn in everybody's side here, and Addy really keen to hold on to positions but also do good racing. To be fair to Addy, he's been racing like a true sportsman as they make their way on through it, and as they come into turn at number 5 right now, Verlaine is going to need to find a way on in, as meanwhile we see that Phil McDougall here in at P13 right now chasing after Stephen Norman, who within his class, it will be the case these two are battling for position very shortly. As they come charging up into the heavy braking zone here, and you see Stephen Norman really locking up under braking there, conscious not to tap the back in Navarro de Bova, as we can see the AM driver ahead really struggling for exit out of these heavy braking zone corners. But as they make their way through 8 and 9 and up into 10, will there be an opportunity? I don't think so, but it is the case that McDougall will be looking to get the pass on Norman as soon as possible, but he's got Blomqvist behind him right now, and it will be Blomqvist, the number 86 car, the pro driver, who will be in a hurry up mode because he's got the Altitude Esports BMW copy of Fletcher. That's Mark Fletcher behind, who's very eager to find his way on through. Now, as they make their way around, going from one Fletcher to another, going to Billy Fletcher. Well, he's already up into P28, which is effective for him at P11 in the Pro class right now. Fletcher has already gained 24 places over the course of the race so far, making good progress. The next target up the road from him is Matt Caruana, and where is Caruana, of course? Well, he is here. He's currently hunting down Holman, as we are hearing it is the case as they make their way on through it. I think Matthew Addy has had a moment not to want to remember, and it is the case. In fact, something's gone very wrong there in the run through 14, 15 and into 16. What has happened to Matthew Addy? Well, this was only moments ago. The SVPMR driver coming through into 14. Now, as he made his way under braking here, he had a Ferrari on the inside and he was turned there. And I believe, unless I'm mistaken, that's Stephen Norman in the Ferrari. And Addy will be in blindsiding as a result, being turned by the Pro-Am driver there. And now he's down in P22. And he's got behind him Hakon Gustad right now, who's trying to come through like a missile in that McLaren. One of our very limited number of McLarens in this season as they make their way down the straight once again here. But all of our drivers keeping it together for the time being, as we can see in the rear of your picture there. You've got James Holman, who's having to defend versus Caruana here as they make their way on through it, and Holman really feeling that pressure as Caruana's trying to look for the move here, snaking around, and into that braking zone they go. And as they come on through the left hand at turn number 3 right now, it's the Audi Simsport driver who is doing everything he possibly can to hold on, and Caruana just cannot seem to find a way on through as they make their way around to down towards the hairpin once again here. But you can see how it's the case that Matthew Addy proving to be a little bit of a cork in the bottle as we see Gustad flashing his lights here, trying to get the message through. Look, you don't need to fight me. And as they come into that braking zone here, it looks so Gustad's got RD Simsport on the inside, and it is the case. It's got James Holman who's trying to make the move here as they come roaring up through the corners, and Holman has to back off because there's not enough room to do it. And Caruana's very close now. He's been the closest he's ever been as they make their way up into turn 10. You can see Caruana on the outside, Holman on the inside here. They're being boxed in effectively by Gustad, and Caruana's going to have the outside to inside, and that's why Caruana is on the charge because he's now up into P24. Brave to go round the outside there, fully committed, and to be fair to James Holman, giving him the space to do so. Holman could have run him off circuit there with the room that was available, but Holman gave him the space and they go racing once again. But Gustad right now is under pressure from Caruana as he has a poor run into the kink there before 14 as they come into 14 and 15 before they make their way down into Le Mans corner. You can see Gustad having to try and hold defence here as Addy is just proving to be a nightmare to find his way on through. As we ride on the gearbox here of Matthew Addy, he's got a face on a McLaren staring at him that's flashed its lights angrily. That McLaren with a glare right now as they come charging down towards turn at number 17. And as we look to the exterior cameras here, Gustad's going to be on the inside this time, and Addy's not going to fight this one. But you can see how much it's cost Gustad, and you can see Caruana just coming through here and saying, okay, don't mind if I do, Addy, if you're going to keep the door open like that. And that is going to hurt Holman massively. And look at this, Fletcher now, Billy Fletcher coming through with them all concertinaing together into turn 17. Fletcher's going to be on the very outside here, but he's got a huge amount of an overspeed. And as they make their way into turn 1, you can see Addy on the outside there, Holman on the inside going defensive, and Fletcher keeping his distance. And they're going to make it 3 wide down into turn 3. Now, can Fletcher send it on the inside here? He does. He books the ticket, he sends it, and he makes flight for P24 as he comes on through and takes the position off of Holman. And Holman getting caught out there massively by simply being too close at the wrong time as they now make their way through turn number 6 and up towards 7 here. But meanwhile ahead, and you can see Caruana, who's already had a number of doings and runnings with Gustad, and I know the two of them, well, I don't think they're going to be sending one another Christmas cards anytime soon, given how the instance they've had between them so far over the course of this series at both Daytona and also here at Sebring. We can see Caruana just trying to find a way past the McLaren driver, who's just relentless in not being able to be passed. As meanwhile, as we come to the end of the 20th minute of this 1 hour race, it's the case that are looking a little bit further up front. We're hearing that Gus Franken, well, in fact, a little bit further down, we're hearing that Gus Franken and Jürgen Nocker have both had a major incident here, and this is between two of the AM drivers. What on earth has happened here? As we see Franken return to the racing. Well, this was only moments ago, and we see Franken go defensive versus Knocker, but in the end, Knocker moves to the inside and looks at under braking, and Franken going on through, and it looks like Knocker, they're just simply tapping the back of him, not having part of the car alongside, and having to push both drivers out the way in the end. That was very unfortunate for the pair of them as they return to racing. That's hurt them both considerably in the overall scheme of things, as meanwhile, we look a bit further up the road to another AM driver. That's Navarro de Bova, who's moving out the way here of Mark Fletcher coming on through, and I think he's given so much space for the final corner. corner. He's actually going to let Blomqvist through as well. And I think Blomqvist is going to be saying, well, thank you very much, my man, as they make their way down towards turn number 1 once again. But here you can see Navarro getting a lot of momentum here in the run down towards 1. Now, as they make their way into the left-hander, will we see a change of position, or will it all settle down? It does look as though it settles down once again as they make their way up in towards turn number 3. And as they come into the left-hander here, it looks like Navarro, well, he's got what is, and McDougall also coming through. McDougall's found his way on through. But Navarro currently running P4 in the AM class right now and keeping it all together, not doing anything flashy and just playing it smart. But meanwhile, someone who is going to need to do something flashy very soon, it is what is Alexander Batak here, as he has got all over the back of him. That is Fletcher. That's Mark Fletcher coming on through, and it will be the situation right now where Batak will be hoping, as we can see there. Well, that looks so. Blomqvist just simply said, you know what, he's not going to be on the inside, I'll take the outside line. And Blomqvist coming through there, and Batak having to let the pro drivers come on through. Well, he didn't have to let them through, but he decided to, and indeed he's lost a lot of time to Rasmussen ahead. But he'll be hoping that Rasmussen loses out massively now, as behind we can see we have got Navarro just being impeded a little bit, having to let the faster class drivers come through, or the Pro-Ams come through, Paul King, as they make their way up towards what is turn number 13 in towards Tower Corner very shortly. But looking further down that order right now, I can tell you all the way down in P30, we've got Arjan Bakker here in a bit of a lonely race right now, and really impacted quite heavily at the start of the race. He's lost the best part of what is 18 positions, and Bakker not having a fun time in this feature race right now, in terms of being able to stay up there in the position he started in. But we look from back up to a bit further up the road, and we see Stephen Norman here right now in the Ignium Motorsport Blaze Ferrari, getting a bit wrong there. And you can see the Altitude Esports Porsche there of what is, I believe, that is Dadswell, the pro driver here, coming past the Pro-Am driver and having to seize the opportunity, because we know how strong the Ferrari can be in those acceleration zones and the run down the straight versus the Porsche. As we can also see here coming on through, that is Ed Lack trying to unlap himself from the field. Remember, Lack is down a whole lap in the CXR Project Black machine right now as they make their way through, and Norman here coming into the pits and making an early stop. He's the first driver really to signal the pit window, and Norman has gone for it early. Now, what could he be planning? That's the big question here. As meanwhile, we can see Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen, well, behind him, he does have Phil McDougall over. Oh, goodness me, and that's Navarro getting it very wrong on the exit of 1 and into the tyre barrier there. And I think Navarro just simply lost the rear of the car for a little bit of going onto the grass. And the Belgian now, what was starting off as a very strong race, going into the second third, it has turned into a disaster, and now he's going to have to try and nurse that car around and consider taking an early pit stop to repair the damage, thanks to that fast repair, as he makes his way down through turn number 6. But meanwhile, up ahead we can see Alexander Batak here, all over the back of his teammate, the two Switchback Motorsports drivers, who won't complain the fact they're running P2, P3 right now. They have got Stefan Koopmans, who's the best part of approximately 15 seconds up the road from them. But I think for Batak and Rasmussen, what they're trying to do is let the faster drivers, i.e. the other class drivers on the through, let them all go through, let them go up towards Koopmans and cause Koopmans problems, and then these guys can catch up through the clear air they create to themselves. As we do see the Altitude Esports Porsche there of Dadswell trying to find his way on through, really trying to build some momentum is Tom Dadswell as he makes his way through 13 here, and you can understand why, because right now he's running P5 in class, and if he's able to catch up to Blomqvist and Fletcher, you can imagine he would love to seize a podium here in the feature, if not higher, as he makes his way past where's Paul King there in the run into 14, and through 15 he comes into Le Mans corner at 16. And as he goes into that braking zone, the Altitude Esports driver doing everything he needs to right now in order to keep building that momentum as he makes his way down towards the final corner. Down the Allman Straight they go. But meanwhile, further back, you can see in the rear of your picture there, we do have Tom Mao in a bit of a squabble versus Kenny Heremans here, who's behind, and he's also alongside Lovesey. Now remember, Lovesey, the Pro-Am driver here, and it's the case the two pros are going to be let on through, and particularly Heremans, who's going to be trying to get his way into this fight as much as he possibly can. As we see Mao into the pits, Tom Mao takes the pit stop here, and he is reacting, I think, to the situation right now and the fact we are starting to see some pit stops. But meanwhile, our winner in the Pro Class in race number 1, and now making his way onto another lap, onto lap number 13, we've got Billy Fletcher here, who as he makes his way through the left-hander, you have to say at this point, Fletcher doing everything right in terms of just coming up through the field, and he does have behind him Haakon Grifstad, of course. As we can see there, it looks like we've had a Ferrari go a bit deep, and that is the Ferrari of Andrew Lovesey, who's got it very wrong at some point, as they make their way into turn number 6 now. And Fletcher's going to be made to go all the way around the houses here, and Haakon Gristad He's going to look for an opportunity. Can he find it as they make their way down towards turn 7? Now, I think at this point, Lovesy's going to back out of it and realise there's no point fighting this as they make their way through the corner. And we can see it's the situation right now that as they come on through and we look to the exterior cameras still, it's Fletcher who's holding on for the time being, but Gristad really trying to put that pressure on the pro driver ahead of him as they make their way into turn number 10 here. Now, what's the plan, of course, from Gristad's perspective? I think he wants to use Fletcher as a batter round to go through the field, essentially say, take me on through with you, Fletcher, because I want to fight for the win, or at least fight for a very high position come the end of it if we're not fighting for the win. And he's not going to push him too hard until then, but we'll have to wait and see, of course, as these drivers make their way on through once again. Now, as they come up towards what is the final section of corners here, really the final sector, as we see Gristad chasing after Fletcher. It is the case, no change between the two of them right now, but we'll need to watch that battle very closely. Meanwhile, a bit further down from them, we've got Matthew Addy, who is trying to really now make a recovery job of this race as he's lost out considerably. He is right now behind DDD Vlaming as they make their way through the sequence of corners culminating in Le Mans corner at turn 16. And a bit further up the order, I'm hearing that Tom Dadswell has now found his way past Phil McDougall, swapping places as we can see more of our higher class drivers coming through versus the lower class drivers, as meanwhile the race goes on. Further back, Diddy Vlaming, who has made it a little bit deep, and we can see it's the case. Navarro de Bova going very close to the wall here, and surely Navarro is going to be into the pits, and we can actually see both of the drivers here, both of them at challenge machines, coming into the pits, and I think deciding enough's enough, as we can see here Daniel Holmer from Bright Esports making his way out the final corner and now going on to another lap. And as Holmer comes all the way down towards what is turn number 1, once again you can see it is the case of the Bright Esports driver just keeping his head down and getting on with the racing as he makes his way on through, and that pit window is now going to start to open things up. But a bit further up the road we can see it's the further down the road we've got Tom Edmonds here battling with what I believe there is Landry, and Landry just moving out the way on the outside to look to come back. And then this is the battle for P40. You've got Reese Carroll ahead in P39, and as they make their way down towards turn number 1 here, the RD Simsport driver who holds on to the lead of this battle right now. You can see Landry tucked in very close behind as they make their way through the corners, and as they come through turn number 1 and head up towards 3, I don't think Landry's going to be coming for this time around as they make their way on through. But as they come through once again, and we continue to check out further around the field, we look a little bit further up right now as we are hearing it is the case that Peter Lemkins has jumped to the pits. In fact, he's in the pits right now, so Lemkins dropping down the order and he's just left his pit box. He's made his one stop, but then we look further up the road and we can see that right now Alexander Batak finds himself with Holman ahead, and in fact Batak at this point with, I believe, what was Stefan Gamble Rasmussen, his teammate who was with him. Well, Rasmussen has taken his pit stop and has come out in P34. Now, where is that P34? Well, it's here, and I think Rasmussen right now will be relaying information back to his teammate to say, do not pit. You're going to come out into a lot of traffic if you do pit right now, because we can see that Rasmussen, whilst he's got himself a small bit of clear air right now, he's behind Stephen Norman. He has got a bit of a traffic jam ahead, as we can see Matt Evans is ahead of him in return, and I believe Matt Evans has yet to pit. Of course, Evans with that run into the wall, coming out to turn number 16, going into the wall at a very missed opportune moment as the Luxim 24 with MV Esports driver now tries to hunt and recover what he can of this race after a P2 in the sprint as he makes his way through the right hand there at turn 16 and chases after Jürgen Nockert. Now Jürgen Nockert ahead right now. It's going to be Audi versus BMW, 2 bits of German machinery going toe to toe. Evans is going to be on the outside here as Nockert defends to the inside in the long run down the Allman straight up towards Sunset Bend, and as they make the way into 17, it's going to be a case that Evans finds a way to cut back in here beyond the apex. He's looking for it, and Nockert on a very slow line right now as Evans goes all the way around, but Nockert into the pits, and as a result it does mean that Evans will take the position, but he has lost some time battling by going around the outside of Nockert as he makes his way down towards turn number 1 here, and all our drivers continue to charge on around. Now as they make their way down in towards turn number 1 once again, and we can see here Matt Evans holding position for the time being, but we have got the chop and change, of course, of the pit window right now in terms of where our drivers are. But we look back up towards our leader, that's the Luxim 24 with MV Esports driver of Elliot Harper, who is comfortably leading right now by 8.2 seconds over Callum Brandt, and we can see Callum Brandt here, the RD Simsport BMW, as he makes his way down towards turn number 2, as he comes charging on down at this point, looking very composed. goes, not having to worry too much at this point about any pressure behind him. But speaking about drivers who have got some pressure building up on them, we can see that Jean-Louis Deschamps right now, the Delta Motorsport driver from Belgium, who is closing up to the back of our leader in the AM class, Stefan Koopmans. Deschamps, of course, in the Pro-Am class, but he'll be chasing after Jeremy DeBova and also Callum Reed-Garton, who are respectively 2 and a further 7 seconds up the road from Deschamps as he makes his way across that timeline here. And Deschamps will know only too well that he's in with an opportunity here of potentially picking up a win, or at least a definite podium in the Pro-Am race as he makes his way on through. And meanwhile, further back, I can tell you that Billy Fletcher has just passed Kenny Herriman for P14. That is effectively P6 in class as they make the way down onto another lap. They go on to lap number 16 now. How did that happen? Here is the well, no, it's not the reveal. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. That's Peter Lemkins. Here is the reveal, ladies and gentlemen, and we can see Billy Fletcher here in the run down the Allman Straight with Kenny Hermans on the outside here. A little bit of contact there as they made their way in. I think both of them trying to squeeze one another for what they're worth. But as they make their way into 17, you can see how Hermans tried to go all the way around. And to be fair to Hermans, if he hadn't gone too deep and clipped the bump in the road, he would have definitely been a lot closer on the exit there, as Håkon Gristad's had to back out of battling with these guys and go into the pits. So Gristad deciding to undercut Fletcher, and this could be a big game changer in terms of Gristad pitting earlier than Fletcher here. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out, as we do now get some slight technical issues starting to crop up, which is a bit unfortunate here after everything was quite smooth a little bit earlier on. Hopefully those technical issues will subside in a brief bit of time as our drivers continue to make their way on through. And as they do at this point, it is the case that right now, as we look back up towards Jean-Louis Deschamps here, who we can see holding on to P6 for the time being, but chasing after Stefan Koopmans, as Koopmans keeps appearing then disappearing, unfortunately, with those what looks to be a slight latency issue on his end as he makes his way through 14 and 15. Deschamps having to be wary of the fact that he does have a driver who is not perhaps right there in terms of connectivity. But meanwhile, looking a bit further down the order, we can see Tom Edmonds here looking to make the move on what there is. Stephen Gamble. Oh, goodness me. And Maurice Carroll being involved in an... Well, it looks as though these two have made contact once again, unless I'm very much mistaken, as they now make their way up through the sequence of corners in the long run up towards turn 10. And you can see Edmonds here having... Well, he's trying to go to war versus Reese Carroll. And I think Reese Carroll on the outside here, well, they're going to make their way on through. They've got to be careful of the fact they've got Jason Landry coming around. But it does look as though Reese Carroll are holding position right now as they come for 11 and into 12 and into the braking zone of 13 they go. And Reese Carroll's going to try and hold the outside still, but in the end he will need to back out because there's only one line out of that corner as the road tapers there off Apex. And as they make their way down towards 14 and 15, I think Reese Carroll at this point will now have what is the fast charging Canadian Jason Landry all over the back of him as we ride on board with Landry in the car, the Ferrari 488 here, as he comes through the sequence of corners of 14, 15 and into 16. But Reese Carroll will be looking to come back at Tom Edmonds, I'm sure, later on as they make their way through the corners and charge down towards what is the hairpin once again, the final hairpin of Sunset Bend as they make their way down the Allman Straight. Now, what can happen at this point? Well, given that all three of these drivers have made a pit stop already, we would assume that they've made their one and only pit stop. And as they come into the braking zone here, you can see the differences in lines being used. Reese Carroll really taking that aggressive line into the corner. Edmonds taking a wider apex. And as they make their way down, Landry in between the two of them. And as they come roaring down onto his lap number 17 into the turn 1 braking zone, they're all too far apart to look for potential moves on one another. But it does look as though Landry doing everything he can to try and stay in this one as he makes his way through the left hand of turn 1 and up towards turn number 3 into that braking zone once again, as they now all start to cluster together as they make their way through the tight sequence of the middle portion of the circuit. Now, as they come on through, behind them is Stefan Gamble Rasmussen. Meanwhile, down in P31, here he is going to let Øystein Hereford come on through on the inside through Big Bend. That's turn number 6 for those of the numerical disposition. And we can see Anders Ankersen behind him in P33 and also trying to come through. Here's Ankersen, and he's going to make the move on the inside here as the RD Simsport driver as he comes through on that inside here, gets the move done, and they make their way up towards turn number 10 right now. And Rasmussen, where it's the case that after making that pit stop he has fallen down and been involved in a lot of traffic, and I think he'll be passing that information around to Alexander Batak, who, where is Alexander Batak, you ask? Well, Alexander Batak, his teammate right now, P17, you're looking at the Switchback Motorsports driver here, who's decided to go long, and I think it's the wise option to go long, as we're hearing that Jeremy DeBova is into the pits from what was at the time in the top 5 of the Pro category. I believe it was P3 at the time. And as we can see right now, Batak making his way around through the corners. It's the case as he goes on to another lap. How long will he go before he makes that all-important pit stop as he goes on to what for him is lap number 18? Well, looking further down the order once again, we can see Tom Mayle here battling with who is Matt Caruana, and Caruana has made its pit stop, as has Tom Mayle. So these two are both both on strategies which have come to their fruition, and these are their places they've come out in. Now, where is it all going to kick off? Well, Caruana will try to hold on versus Mayle, who gets a very tight run there through the final corner, and that costs him a little bit with the rebound off of the road surface there, where it's not an even road surface. And as they make their way down towards turn 1, I'm hearing that Rhys Cowell has had a moment out on the circuit, and we'll take a look very shortly at what's happened. And in fact, I think he's had a moment at the final corner. What's happened to the Drive Dead Racing driver? Well, this was only moments ago with what is Tom Edmonds here. Now, he made his way in on the inside of 17. And as they came through the corner, Rhys Cowell just too tight to the apex and the rear of the car, jutting out. And as a result, just missing the tyre barrier there. But Rhys Cowell, I think, will want to put this race behind him. It's been a very difficult one. In fact, the whole experience of Sebring has been a difficult one this time round in this series as he makes his way through turn 3. Right now, he's down in P32. That's P16 in class. But meanwhile, looking from him and back up the road, we can see that Lucas Romano right now does have Colin Martin over the back of him. The two Pro-Am drivers here will go toe-to-toe as we ride on board with Romano as they go charging down Allman Straight here, down towards the final corner. Now, in terms of potential trades of position, it does look as though at this point Romano holding on for the time being. As they do come into that final corner, you can see Colin Martin sniffing that potential move on the inside and then having to back out of it. And actually had a really poor run. He's gone into the pits, and that's why he's had that style of run there, taking that tight run. But Romano being relieved for the time being as they make their way down towards what is turn number 1 once again. And Romano in P3 in his class right now, in the Pro-Am class, just trying to hold on and chase after Mark Fletcher, who the Pro driver will gradually pull off into the distance as we understand it. But more pit stops coming up. Colin Martin, Andrew Lovesey, Ben Hicks and Alexander attacking. Now, where will they come out in relation to everyone? As we can see Daniel Homer and Jeremy Dubova here making their way out of the final corner. Now, Daniel Homer is yet to pit, it should be pointed out. Meanwhile, Jeremy Dubova behind him has pitted. So right now for the Belgian, he will try and close up as much as possible because he will not want to be trapped behind Homer. He will want to get past and make the break on through, as Jeremy Dubova in the Challenge B1 machine is now back up into P13. That is P6 in class, and can he get past Homer soon? Because Paul King ahead of him is yet to pit, and on top of that, Lucas Romano is yet to pit, Callum Ringarton and also Jean-Louis Deschamps have yet to pit. So Jeremy Dubova could yet potentially be chasing after a podium here in the Pro-Am class as they make the way on through, but plenty of pit stops occurring, and as a result now we are starting to see how it comes together as we see Jeremy Dubova here looking on the inside versus Homer down into turn 7. I think it's the case that Homer has also decided, you know what, we're on different strategies, there's no point me fighting this because I'm going to have to pit soon, and Dubova, I think, being very happy not to have to fight for that one as he makes his way up towards turn number 10. But will we see Homer potentially come back? We'll have to wait and see as they make their way through. You can see Dubova going defensive here into 10 and Homer backing off in the end. I think trying to get the signal through without flashing his lights. So look, I'm not going to push this one on you as they make their way through 10 and up towards 13. Now, as they come up towards the last third of the circuit, we look to a little bit further down as drivers are making their way up towards turn 10. It's Matt Caruana and Tom Mayle here and Hakon Gustad behind. And it does look as though Caruana trying to build that pressure on Tom Mayle. He can't find his way through at the moment. I believe actually these two have traded places at some point, because it was Caruana who was ahead, if I remember correctly, only moments ago. And as a result, as they make their way through turn number 13 right now and head down towards what is turn number 16, it's a situation where you've got Hakon Gustad behind, and we've seen Caruana and Gustad together a good amount of time, and indeed Tom Mayle as well, and it's almost as if we're going to say, oh look, it's you three again in the camera, sharing the same camera space. But we do love to see it when the pros go toe to toe here, and of course these three all very fiercely competitive among one another as they come out of turn 16, and it looks like Caruana here getting the best run of the three of them as they make their way down the Allman Straight. It's a very long run down towards turn 17, and Caruana will only pull out at the last possible moment if he needs to. In fact, I think he's backed it off here a little bit. I think he might be trying to do some fuel saving the Apex Tech Racing machine as he makes his way through the right hander there of what is turn number 17 and heads down towards turn number 1. Now, as he makes his way down, Hakon Gustad, who's had a very strong run out the final corner, could we potentially see the Norwegian look for a move? He's going to look for it here on the inside, and as they go into turn 1, it's going to kick off once again between Caruana and Gustad as they come through the opening corner of the lap and make their way down towards 2 and 3. We can see immediately Caruana, having got himself back ahead on the exit of 1, pulls to block, pretty much saying to Gustad, no, you are not coming through this time. I'm not letting this happen. Unlike like in the sprint races. They make their way through turn number 5 and into 6 here, but it is already kicking off once again between these guys, as meanwhile a little bit further up the road, I can tell you that Daniel Blomqvist is trying to find his way past Lucas Romano right now, and it's the case that Blomqvist is yet to make his pit stop, but you can see Gristad sniffing the move once again, but not close enough to try and make it happen, but definitely looking as though he wants to find that place. As we see behind, it was the case that Phil McDougall there having a bit of a mince meter of what was the hairpin, getting it all sorts of wrong, and he's got his teammate Ed Lack who's now trying to come on through, albeit Lack is still a lap down, but staying this one, you've got to give it Lack credit for staying in it to the very end. They could have boxed the car, but he's staying all the way in it. It's great to see, but he's going to have to let Holman come on through. As you can see, Holman now is being impeded. And you can see Holman is flashing his lights here to politely say, before he has to force the nose of the car down the inside, look, respect the blue flags. I know you're trying to unlap yourself, but please respect the blue flags. And indeed, Lack in the end does pull out the way and gives him up the position. As meanwhile, behind them, you can see you've got James Slates here, who's leading ahead of Stephen Norman. This is the battle for P8 in the Pro-Am class, and effectively what is P19 overall. Tom Edmonds and Jason Landry behind them, squabbling over their own positions. We see Edmonds coming on through here in the running to 14 and 15, and just getting the door shut there before Landry could potentially capitalise and come on through as well. And Stephen Norman, I think, will be getting the radio from the Ignium Motorsports team chiefs here to say, let your teammate, well, they're not teammates in terms of the individual team, but they are Ignium Motorsport drivers, and you can see already he's letting Jason Landry through, knowing that Landry is chasing after Edmonds, and it's not worth fighting him as they make their way in towards turn number 17. They come through the right-hander here, 19 minutes to go, or just under, and those pit stops are still coming in as the racing continues here at Sebring. We have not got much longer in this racing to go in terms of the pit stops. In fact, all the pit stops are all said and done, minus one pit stop right now, and that is the pit stop from Callum Reid Garton, our race leader right now, and also our driver who is leading the Pro-Am class and is really trying to just take the win here to make up for what was a disaster of a sprint race after pole position in qualifying, and Garton pushing on. And meanwhile, with all the pit stops occurring, the big question is, where is Billy Fletcher in all of this, having gone very long compared to his peers in the Pro class? Well, here is your Pro driver, Billy Fletcher, who has come out in P8, and he's come out right ahead of the majority of the Pro class. The only drivers ahead of him in his same class are Mark Fletcher, Callum Brandt, and also Elliot Harper. As we can see here, Fletcher making his way down towards turn number 10, and behind you see Blomqvist coming through alongside Dadswell there and getting the move done for what is P10, and Blomqvist holding that position very firmly as he makes his way on through. And as they come up towards turn 13 into Tower Corner here, you can see how Dadswell is looking for the move versus the Swede, but he's not able to find it as now they make their way down towards what is turns 14 and 15. But as they come charging on through the sequence of quarters here, it does look as though now Dadswell has got more pressure building behind him, and that is Colin Martin, who's trying to find his way on through here as they make their way in. And Callum Reid Garton is finally into the pits. He is the last of our drivers to pit, and as we can see, Dadswell making his way on through. Callum Reid Garton already out the pit, so it is the case. I think he's gone very long on the fuel tank and is just trying to make it work, as Callum Brandt has come across and taken the position away. But Callum Reid Garton leaving the pit lane right now, as meanwhile we focus on what's happening right on our screen, and it is the case Dadswell losing time to Blomqvist. But in terms of the battles behind, Carolina is ahead of Tom Mayle here, and as they make their way through the right-hander at turn number 17, excuse me, I think it's going to be the case that Carolina will now try to make the breakaway, knowing only all too well at this point, if he's not able to make the break and Tom Mayle's able to come back at him, it's only going to get more difficult. As meanwhile further back you can see it's a situation right now where James Holman in the Ferrari having to work to get past Phil McDougall, of course the Pro driver coming past the Pro-Am, but the RD Simsport driver is not going to leave anything up for grabs, as we can see Ed Lack behind the pair of them. I think at this point Ed Lack's just trying to follow his teammate through it and use his teammate to get him past some of the slower drivers without the blue flags becoming a problem, as I think we've had a major moment just a bit further up the road, and it is the case. I think Tom Edmonds has had something go very, very wrong, and it looks as though it's not just Tom Edmonds, that is Dadswell. Now, what has happened to Dadswell in all of this? It's the case, I think we've had multiple drivers have something going wrong, and we are going to find out exactly what's happened very shortly, but Dadswell's definitely been involved in some sort of incident as we now try to look back at specifically what has happened. Well, that looks to be the sort of ending of the incident, and it does look as though that was Dadswell, and also, well, I'm trying to, that's Blomqvist who's had the moment with him. So whilst we're not able to see exactly what's happened, it's definitely the case that Blomqvist has had the incident with Dadswell. In fact, we are going to get you that replay now, ladies and gentlemen. So this was only moments ago, coming out of turn number 5, and it was the case Dadswell and Blomqvist trying to share the same bit of track, and in the end, Blomqvist and Dadswell making that contact, and that's where it all went wrong. But meanwhile, they make their way through. Now 15 minutes remaining of the hour-long feature race here. And as all of our drivers come on through, it's now a case of how did the strategy all play out? That will be the big question hanging over the minds of our drivers. What we can see here, Mark Fletcher, the other Altitude Esports driver, making his way through the final corner. He's just come through Jean-Louis Deschamps. Deschamps relinquishing the position there, given the fact they're not in the same class. And I think at this point, Deschamps will be hoping that Mark Fletcher, can catch up to Jeremy Debova, who is only 5 seconds up the road from this pair, and essentially bring him into contention for what would be an opportunity at taking P2 in the Pro-Am class. I think Callum Reed-Garton is too far ahead for Debova to close up to. He's 11 seconds up the road, effectively, is Garton ahead of Jeremy Debova. But meanwhile, it could be the case that Debova is vulnerable to Deschamps right at the end of this race. Meanwhile, in terms of the story in the Pro class, it is still Elliot Harper leading for Luxim 24 with M&V Esports. 12.5 seconds here of Callum Brandt. And we can see Callum Brandt here making his way down towards what is turn number 10. And then in the AM class, it is Stefan Tim Koopmans, albeit his car disappears and reappears every so often. He's a bit of a ghost in terms of our cameras, and he's been a bit of a ghost to the AM drivers here, as we can see the Dutchman from RP Motorsports making his way right now through the sequence of courses of 8 through to 10. And his closest rival is Alexander Batak, who, as we look at the safety car there, because of the connectivity issues that Koopmans is having, we can see Alexander Batak here just holding firm in P2 in the AM class, but he is a long way back at Koopmans, and that is how it has worked out, given Koopmans starting right up towards the front, whereas Batak and company have started much further down and had to deal with the pros and the Pro-Ams coming through the order. As we do see here, it looks like Paul King's got it very wrong on the exit of 7 as he makes his way down towards turn at number 8, 9 here, and as they come through into 10, it's Paul King on the outside, Batak on the inside here. Now, will Batak let this one go, or will he fight King? He's going to fight King as they make their way through the right-hander. And as they come on through here, it does look as though it's building up between these two, and Batak has taken the position for the time being, as we can see that Andreas Hackinson saying, let's go at Bright Esports. Indeed, Bright Esports putting in everything they can here, but as we're looking at the Switchback Motorsports driver right now, just trying to do everything he can, is Alexander Batak, and he's holding that position. But meanwhile, looking a bit further up the road, we can see Hakon Gustad here chasing down what is Tom Male, but he's got a long way to go to close up to Male. And in turn, as they made their way through the corner here, Tom Male peeling off. Is Male coming into the pits here? Because he's been very slow through the corner, and I think Tom Male at this point may be nursing some sort of issue with the car, because as Gustad's going to come around on the inside here, and this is a position for P11 overall and what is P6 in class, and Gustad's coming on through, and I think Tom Male's had a moment at what was turn number 17 as they make their way through. RD Simsport on the outside now as they make their way out towards turn 3. Gustad on the inside, and surely this is said and done here. There's no way to come back at this as they make their way into 4. No, the door closes shut, and as a result now Hakon Gustad will take the position, but he's got it a little bit wrong on the entry into turn number 5. Now, can Tom Male come back? I don't think so at this point, but is there a problem for the RD Simsport driver? Because he was going incredibly slowly through the final corner, and Gustad right now is closing up, and he's gone past him now, trying to make the break considerably so as they come through turn number 7 once again here with 12 minutes to go. And as they make their way through turns 8 and 9 and up into 10 very shortly, it is the case that Tom Male right now really just trying to get a move on chase down Gustad. As ahead of them, we can see Lucas Romano here looking to get past Matt Caruana, but Caruana, of course, the pro driver, will have cleared Romano and will now be breaking away and going after the next drivers up the road. As meanwhile, whilst this is going on, I can tell you a bit further down, we do, oh goodness me, and Navarro Debova into the wall here. He's gone off circuit. What has happened to Navarro Debova? So as he's making his way through turn number 1, he just lost the rear end and the car has turned on him. And as a result, the McChange BE2 driver is having a race day, which is going into the disaster zone right now as he goes to rejoin. It has not been a good feature race for him in particular, but he will bounce back from this. We know his resilience and the fact he digs very deep over the course of proceedings. As we look a bit further up the field once again, and we see Jean-Louis Deschamps here in P6 making his way through the right hand of the Delta Motorsport driver as he comes on through and he presses on, but he has got now Billy Fletcher behind him. In terms of Billy Fletcher trying to close up to Mark Fletcher, well, that gap to Mark Fletcher is only 3 seconds, so I think Billy will be hoping at this point that Jean-Louis Deschamps is not going to make this one too difficult for him. He's just going to be let on through, and then he can go hunt down the driver up the road from him. But will that be the case? Will it materialise as nicely as that, or will it be the case that Deschamps wants to hold the position as they come through turn 3 and up into 5? Well, I think for Deschamps right now, if he was going to let Fletcher through and not cost himself any time to debove up the road, he would do it here on the big bend, and indeed he's already doing so. And you can see Fletcher flash his lights to say thank you, and I think it's the case that Deschamps will now be repaid the favour with essentially Fletcher giving him the tow all the way around the rest of the lap here, and that may help him with some of the lap time as they make their way through turn number 7 and go roaring into the second half of the lap and head up towards what is Tower Corner all the way up at turn 13. But meanwhile, a bit further back, I can tell you whilst this is happening, it is a situation right now whereby as they make their way up towards what is turn number 10, and we've got Jason Landry here, the pro driver, making his way all the way through turns 8 and up into 9, and as the Delta Motorsport driver continues to make the charge here, it's the case the Canadian has got to try and find his way past Dadswell being in the same class soon. This is the battle for effectively P9 in the pro class as they come into that heavy braking zone. Now I'm hearing that Kurt Van Hoornacker has had a moment off circuit, and George Bland has also gone off circuit. We'll have a look back at what's happened there shortly. As we can see right now, it's the case that Landry holding behind Dadswell for now, and I think he'll look for that opportunity on the straight as we ride on board here with the Ferrari driver as they make their way down towards Le Mans Corner. It's the long run down from 13 to 16, and you can see just how much Landry is closing up in the speed there as they make the way through 14. But it's as he rotates into the right to left combo here that he's feeling the dirty air off the front of that Porsche just hinder him somewhat, but he gets a nice early apex there, and in fact it's unfortunate for Landry because it looks so Dadswell has had the best possible exit he could, plus the fact he's also got the toe of McDougall ahead of him, and it looks so Dadswell right now is actually sizing up McDougall. Can Landry potentially get into this with the fact that Dadswell is going to have to come off racing line in order to be able to get the move done? You can see McDougall stand on the outside here, and as they make the way through, we look to the exterior cameras, and as they come around you can see how McDougall has backed off for the pair of them, and Landry has closed up a little bit here, but nowhere near as much as what he would have liked with 8.5 minutes to go as they make their way down towards turn number 1 once again. Now as they come through the left-hander here, it does look as though Landry just trying to push on for now, but it also seems that Dadswell has got everything he needs in the bag to hold position as they make their way through. And Lucas Romano right now having a little bit of a rallycross moment there, going off circuit, and as a result Tom Mao battling with Hakon Gustad once again here. These two making their way down into turn at number 7 under braking, battling for the pro class position of what is P6, and Gustad on the inside here. Tom Mao's going to look for the cutback, and as they come through there's no change this time as they make their way all the way through up towards Tower Corner now, turn 13, and I think it's the case that Tom Mao's going to have to wait for an opportunity later in the lap at this point because it's not materialised right now as they come into the right-hander of 10 and make their way on through. But meanwhile, further down the order, we can see Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen. Well, I was talking earlier about the fact that these two pitted at very different times. Well, in the end, they've come out exactly next to one another, indeed, and nose to tail once again. Gamborg Rasmussen being the second of the two drivers in Switchback Motorsport. As we see there, it looks as though it looks like Alexander Patak having a nightmare of a moment coming out of the corner. Now, I'm not sure what's happened to Patak, but what I can tell you is that as a result of it, Daniel Holmer's coming on through here, as we do have the pro driver coming on through, and Kenny Herman's the pro driver coming through around these guys. I think both of the AM drivers just trying to move out the way as they can see the pro and the pro trying to come through, but this is a bit of a difficult one to navigate as Kenny Hermans goes almost off circuit. Now, hold up a second, what has happened to Elliot Harper? I'm hearing that Elliot Harper has had a moment. So as he was making his way through the final corner here, Harper coming through the right-hander of 17. Oh, goodness me, and a car right in the way of a Switchback Motorsport machine. Now, I think that was Oosterhuis. And as a result, Elliot Harper tapping the back of that Ferrari quite hard. Now, as Harper got major engine damage, because this has been a very straightforward and simple race up until now. And in terms of the gap between himself and Callum Brandt, well, right now it's 7.5 seconds. It was 12 seconds, but it's come down to 7.5. He's only got 6 minutes to go, and a pit stop at this point would completely destroy his race. We'll have to wait and see as he makes his way through turn at number 13. So through turn at number 10 and heads round to 13. But Elliot Harper right now, you'd have to say, if this was to take his race and take away the win, it would hurt him massively. He's been flawless, albeit he started towards the front, which is understandable given the disaster of the sprint race. But that is a sight for sore eyes if it's going to go wrong at the final moment. As meanwhile, Tom Mao continuing to chase after Hakon Gustad here as he makes his way through the sequence of corners through turns 7 and 8 and up into 9. And it's Tom Mao who is just trying to find a way on through versus the McLaren driver, but no way at the moment as they make their way up the road. But looking a bit further down the order, I can tell you that as things currently stand with regards to the intervals between drivers, we also do have a little bit of a battle building between Anthony Beck and DD Vlaeminck here. We've got the Ignium Motorsport Spark driver here chasing after what is DD Vlaeminck as they make their way through the sequence of corners here. Ignium Motorsport versus McChallenge, and as they come through the right-hander of what is turn 8 and up into 9 before 10, you can see that Beck not close enough right now to look for that move, but he is trying to find a way through within the 5 minutes remaining once they come towards Tower Corner, this being of course their 27th tour of the circuit in this feature race as they make their way around. And I can tell you, with regards to Elliot Harper, his last lap after that incident between himself and Ustos was a 2:01.4. Meanwhile, for Callum Brandt, his pursuer, a 2:07. So as a result, Elliot Harper is losing 7/10 of a second to his rival in the hunt for the win. But I do not think it's going to be enough to completely upset the apple cart for Harper, which for him will be a big sigh of relief. And indeed for Luxim with MV Esports, it's going to be a big sigh of relief. But meanwhile, as we can see here, Beck, well, trying to push on. And right now after DD Vlaeminck, it's the long run down towards 17 as the fastest lap is now set in the race. A 59.1 by Matt Caruana. The man is just an absolute flyer. We can see Beck flying after Vlaeminck, but not able to find a way on through as they come through the final corner here. But as we ride on board, it's the case. Beck getting very close there through Sunset Corner as they make the way, or Sunset Bend I should say, as they now make the way onto another lap. But can Beck get close enough in the long run down towards turn 1? I don't think he's got the speed here in order to be able to look to the inside. It's a wide entry, but you can see Beck just not close enough. But it does look as though Vlaeminck gets it a bit wrong, then goes very deep and has to recover the car. Now will Beck be able to get the run here down to 3? You can see Vlaeminck going defensive to the inside, and as we see Beck trying to cut back here, it goes to a right-hander into left-hander, so Beck can't use the cutback technique which drivers love to use. And as they make the way out of 5 right now, it does look like it settles back down, but Beck definitely making his intentions clear to Vlaeminck. You make a mistake, I'm going to take that place off of you. And as they make the way out of 6 and down towards 7, can the Briton find his way on through, or will it be the case that Vlaeminck is too strong for him? And indeed it will be the situation that the Belgian just holds firm in the battle for P10 in the Pro-Am class. Well, whilst we are looking at this, we now look briefly away to Jeremy DeBova, another Pro-Am driver here in P2. The McChallenge B1 driver here, we've just let Mark Fletcher on through. He's got Billy Fletcher closing up behind him. Fletcher, the second of the two Fletchers here, the Billy Fletcher, charging after these two at the front of the camera and trying to hunt down Mark Fletcher in particular for that P3 in class come the end of this race. Will he be able to get it? That's the big question. We've got 3 minutes remaining, so 2 more laps after the one they're just about to come to an end of. So they will be doing what will be 30 laps of this circuit, indeed, as they make their way around. Meanwhile, a bit further down, I'm hearing that George Bland has had a bit of a moment out on circuit only moments ago. We're just going to try and find out what's happened there very shortly. And here you go, ladies and gentlemen, George Bland. So this was with, by the looks of things, that's Jochen Seeger and Matt Emmons here in the braking zone for turn 7. And Bland, we looked inside and just turned Matt Emmons on the rear there and parked up the car briefly as Emmons returned to the circuit. But I think for Bland, that's very unfortunate for the Briton as they make their way around onto the circuit once again. But those two not having a good day at the office, as meanwhile looking a bit further up the order from them, we can see right now that battle for what is P4 overall, but P3 in the Pro class is now only separated by the Pro-Am Jeremy DeBova, who's in the middle of the two Fletchers going to war. But behind, a bit further down the road, we can see Rees Cowell here closing up to the back of Phil McDougall, and Rees Cowell, despite it all, still trying to find a way to recover into this race as he makes his way through turn 6 and up into turn 7 here. Got quite the gaggle of cars ahead, including Ankerson, Landry, Dadswell and Holman, but whether he's going to catch them or not by the end, that is the big challenge as they make their way on down towards what is turn number 10. But as they come charge on through, we've had a car go off, I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, and it looks like Jason Landry here being passed on the inside of what is Tom Dadswell there. Dadswell getting a really good run up into turn number 10, and now will Landry be caught out here by the fact he's got Ankerson behind, who's trying to look every which way there, and his contact as Ankerson taps the back of Landry's car, and I think it's the case that Landry putting himself in the middle of the road, and as they make their way down there, you can see Lack having to back out of it all, but as a result, Landry's just lost 2 places at the price of 1, and that was a very difficult situation for Landry, as meanwhile We're hearing that Kenny Hermans has had a moan out on circuit. No, in fact, he's still back and all. I think it may have just been a case of a bit of an instant going into what was turn number 10. And as he makes his way up into turn 13, I can tell you that right now our race leader of Elliot Harper is on the final lap. So we are going to complete 30 laps of racing here on the lead lap. And right now, it could not be a tight. And speaking of a tight battle, we can see going on to that final lap. Here is Billy Fletcher chasing down Mark Fletcher in the battle for P3 in the Pro Class. Can he close up to Mark Fletcher, or will it be too far? That will be the big question for him as he comes on through. Meanwhile, a little bit further down, we can see Colin Martin here getting very close to the back of Lucas Romano in the Pro-Am class. This is battling for P4 in the Pro-Ams, as they've got James Holman just ahead of him, the Pro driver here, who's proving to be a bit of a nuisance, and backing Romano up as they make their way through 4 and into 5. And I think Romano at this point will be hoping the SVPMR driver just simply does not come on through. When in fact he's the Next Gen Racing blue driver there. That's a glitch on our team sheet as they make their way through at the right-hander, and as they come charging on down towards turn number 7. It looks like Martin's going to look for the move here. Is he close enough? Not quite, as he comes under that braking zone, but Colin Martin tried to make the move. It did not work out, but as they come through the right-hander sequence now and up towards what is turn number 10, we meanwhile look back towards the end of the lap, and here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Elliot Harper right now, who has led this one from practically the start and run it all the way through. And despite the incident towards the end, the damage that he picked up coming out of this corner moments ago, as he makes his way through the final corner, it will be the Luxem 24 with MV Esports driver of Elliot Harper from the United Kingdom, who takes the win in the feature race at Sebring in round number 2 and takes the win in the Pro category. Behind him will be Callum Branton in for RD Simsport coming home in P2, and then it will be Callum Reed Garton, who, as he makes his way out the final corner, it was a disaster in the sprint, but he takes the win in the Pro-Am race of the feature. Brilliant drive by Garton. And then it will be Mark Fletcher, who, as he makes his way out the final corner, just holds off of Billy Fletcher for P4 overall. That is P3 in the Pro class. And then Jeremy DeBoer behind him, P6 overall, P2 Pro-Am. Matt Caruana there, P7, and it's going to be Jean-Louis Deschamps in P8, followed by Hakan Gunstad in P9, Tom Mao P10, and it will be Stefan Tim Koopmans, as we try to see him on circuit, who crosses the line as your winner in the AM class. And then a brilliant drive from Koopmans, and the technical issues that cost him the win in the feature race at Daytona not coming back to haunt him. James Holman P12, Lucas Romano P13, Colin Martin P14, Dadswell P15, Jason Landry P16, Reese Carroll P17, Ashton Hereford P18, Phil McDougall P19, Andrew Lovesey P20, and then we've got Ben Hicks in P21 as Anders Ankerson P22, Paul King P23, Anthony Beck P24 crosses the line, Didi Vlament there P25, Daniel Homer P26, Kenny Hermans P27, Tony Verschaff P28, and then we've got Stefan Gamble Rasmussen P29 and second place in the AM class, and alongside him his teammate Alexander Batak as they go for the photo opportunity there to cross the line together. Alexander Batak P30 overall, P3 in the AM class. A brilliant drive from these two. Fantastic teamwork between them. Then Matthew Addy P4 in the AM class. A great drive from the SVPMR driver, as we then see Matthew Hodges P32 and Jochen Seeger coming out of the final corner P33 overall, and a P5 in the AM class. A brilliant drive to P5 from the winner in what was the sprint race earlier on today. Jakob Boschov there P34. Not the greatest today for the Ignium Motorsport Spark driver. Matt Emmons in the end recovering to P6 ahead of George Blanding class P35, P36 respectively. Stephen Morman P37, Kurt Van Hernacker comes across the line in P38, Robert de Sunic then P39, and in completing your top 40, James Slates here as he comes out the final corner and goes into the pits. A brilliant race at Sebring in the feature race as well, and do not go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back in approximately 2 to 4 minutes to bring you those post-race interviews with our winners of the feature race. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we are back and ready for some post-race interviews from the feature race, speaking to our winners, of course. And we're going to do something a little bit different this time. We're going to start off with our Pro-Am winner, and that was Callum Reid-Garton. Let's get him in here. Hello, Callum. Can you hear me?
I can, mate.
Callum, a difficult day today, I think, for yourself, but a way to recover and bring it around in the feature race with the win. How's it feel to take to the top step in the feature?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. It was a lot of fun. Sprint race, yeah, it was just yeah, we'll not talk about that one.
Oh, indeed. But with regards to obviously you had great pace in qualifying. I think that's something that needs to be highlighted. And it was the misfortune, the sprint, which was cost you in that race. But then turning it around into the feature, what was going through your mind going into the feature, knowing that you'd be starting quite up towards the front? Was there a particular strategy in mind, or was it go hell for leather to make sure you got the maximum points?
To be fair, I knew there was a couple of guys in front which were in the AM class, so I knew I'd make up a few positions there. I was a little bit weary of overtaking a few because somebody had some connection issues, were blinking a hell of a lot. So I was just biding my time, just making it clean, just being patient, more or less. I was saving fuel anyway. I was doing giga fuel saving laps. It was crazy. And but yeah, I think I went like 2 laps longer than the guys in front. So that brought me closer to, I think, was it Callum in front of me? I think it was.
Yes.
And, yeah, and my fuel calculator told me wrong, and I actually overfueled, which was annoying. So I could have gone for the P2, but yeah, it is what it is.
Well, it was a brilliant drive from yourself in that regard, although I do have to tell you, our stewards are going to take that fuel out your car. They're not going to let you take that to Road Atlanta in a week's time. But I can see in the chat right now, we've got on the YouTube chat a chap named YouTube Xander really cheering you on and saying my man is doing giga laps all around. So you've definitely caught the eyes of a good number of individuals. But I do have to ask, with regards to coming through the field, what was the biggest challenge for yourself in terms of trying to find a way past the AM drivers in particular? Was it just the width of the circuit or the difference in pace?
No, some of them had some AM drivers had some really decent pace. I think the guy in the Lamborghini, I can't remember who it was. He was the one who was having connection issues. Like he seemed like he had decent pace at the start. But yeah, obviously going through forward. Obviously, I think it was is it Jeremy? I think his name is, who's in the pro class, who finished second. I think it was. Was chasing him down, and then I was just literally just fuel saving as much as I can, try and maximise the gap towards the end of the race, which I think it was about 10 seconds. I think it was from 3 seconds from when I went into the pit. So it the fuel saving worked. But yeah, it is what it is.
Oh, indeed, and looking from now to in a week's time, Road Atlanta round number 3, where we wrap up our tour in the United States. How are you feeling for the quite high-paced circuit?
I really like Road Atlanta, so I'll be looking forward to that one.
Well, thank you for joining us in the interview room, and congratulations once again on the win in the feature. We look forward to seeing you in a week's time, but until then, all the best.
Thank you, Paul. Take care.
Hearing there from Callum Reid-Garton, very happy with that performance, but as he mentioned right at the start, don't talk to him about the sprint race. I think he will be ruining the fact that it could have been some huge points up for grabs today by getting the sprint race result and also the feature race. But still, what was a disaster in the sprint, he turned around in the feature and he's ended on a high, and you can hear that momentum in his voice, and also managing the race very well. And now, going from one driver who managed the race very well to another, we go over to Elliot Harper, who was our pro winner. As we just get Elliot into the interview room. Hello, Elliot. Can you hear me?
I can.
Elliot, a brilliant drive from yourself from start to finish in the feature race, culminating, of course, a fantastic win. How do you feel about ascending to the top step in the feature race?
It was an interesting evening. Qualifying was okay. I think I got tapped around in T1 of the sprint race. So I was kind of like back of the pack after lap 1. So from then it was just it was a bit of a boring cruise round for the reverse grid because I was kind of out of the race then. So I started near the front in the feature. I think I started 4th. I was up to P1 after the first lap. And yeah, I guess from then on in it was just pretty quiet race. Quite nice actually in many ways. But yeah, no issues. Kind of throughout the whole race, and yeah, went quite well. Can't complain, and nice to have a first win in the championship as well.
Oh, indeed. It's always to get good to get a first win on the board. And just dissecting, obviously the sprint race didn't work out the way you wanted. And so, as you were saying, running towards the back in the sprint and quite a quiet and a boring experience. Over the course of that time, were you sort of mentally thinking to yourself, okay, what am I going to do in the feature? No, I'm going to be up front. Did you tweak your strategy as a result?
I mean, I think my strategy because of the way the rules are, you reverse grid if you finish on the first lap. So strategy was just try and get as high up as I can for the feature, and then hopefully it'll be clean from there. So the strategy in the feature, I just kind of pushed for the first laps, got a bit of a gap over Callum, and then just kind of made sure I didn't make any mistakes and bring it home. And I guess I should mention, I think Billy won the first one, didn't he? So it was Luxem won both the sprint and the feature today, which was also really good for the team.
Indeed, a fantastic job from the team of Luxem. And now looking ahead to Road Atlanta in a week's time, the final circuit on our American portion of the calendar, a very high speed, high intensity circuit. How are you feeling for that circuit?
It's good to find out where we're going next week for a start. So I had no idea until you mentioned it just then. So that's cool. It's a nice track. It's quite challenging as well. So I guess a bit like Sebring in that sense. Pretty bumpy, challenging. But I like it. It's a good track, so it'll be some pretty good close racing, I think, as well. There's certainly a lot of good drivers in the championship, so makes it pretty intense, but pretty good fun at the same time.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear. Well, we look forward to seeing you take to the circuit in a week's time. But until then, congratulations once again on the win in the feature race and your first win in the series. And we look forward to seeing you in a week's time.
Thank you very much. See you in a week. Cheers, Paul.
No problem. So hearing there from Elliot Harper, very happy to have picked up his first win and making it so Luxem 24 of MVE Sports, taking wins in the Pro Class in both the sprint and also the feature race. A great achievement by them. But of course, Elliot Harper saying, much like with Callum Regatta, mentioned about the fact with the sprint not going well, it was about turning things around in the feature race and just preparing to take that win by the hands and absolutely send it all the way to the distance. And it worked out for the pair of them. Now, unfortunately, with regards to Stefan Tim Koopmans, I've not heard anything with regards to him coming over to our interview room. And, well, we have put a little bit of a reminder out to him, and I'm just going to do that one more time. But I think it may be the case that he may not be able to join us for an interview. And if so, of course, some drivers do have to come off immediately due to different time zones. Stefan Tim Koopmans being an hour ahead of us. So right now for him, it is 11:30 at night. He may be needing to get some sleep for work the next day. A lot of drivers, of course, career professionals in their own personal careers and then do iRacing as a bit on the side. Others more intense in the esports. Well, we've got a whole variety of drivers of different disciplines and skill levels here. But we're just checking to see if we do have Stefan Tim Koopmans join us. But I think it may be the case that he is not going to be joining us in the interview room today. If we do anything in the meantime, we'll definitely switch back to his interview. But I think that does mean, ladies and gentlemen, that it is time for us to wrap up. So thank you very much for watching. We have been bringing you this series so far over 2 rounds. We've got 10 more rounds of fantastic racing to go. But as well as the racing, if you do want to know a little bit more about the Next Gen Racing community in general, or our series and what we do, why not check us out, our official website, that's nextgenracing.co.uk. Alternatively, the Next Gen Racing Facebook group, that's facebook.com/groups/nextgenracing. Also, a big thank you to our partners for Lobby 1, without whom it would not be possible. That's Apex Racing Academy, of course, helping us out with the setups and also the prizes, and we're grateful to have ARA on board with us. But as mentioned just a moment ago to Elliot Harper, who's found out now, we are going to be heading to Road Atlanta in a week's time for round number 3, the final round of our American tour on Wednesday the 1st of December 2021. And as may be seen in this reference lap, which will be bringing you the onboard of in a week's time, as brought to you by Matt Emmons from the AM class. This circuit being a circuit of very high intensity, where already of quite a tight circuit, a twisty circuit, but one with a very high speed, a very high average speed by comparison with the previous circuit. We're just coming away from Sebring, and as a result, you can expect the fighting will be fierce, but also it's going to be a case of knowing when to pass and when to attack at the right time. It is a track which is going to be quite quite daunting as they go up at the hill and then come all the way back down it. And it's the case that some drivers may see their championship go uphill from here, others may see it go downhill, but we'll only find out in a week's time. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we have been Next Gen Racing. I have been Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain the Spit, and until next week, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly from all of us here at Next Gen Racing, remember to stay on track. Good night.